Hello and welcome, YouTube, to another lovely podcast. I'm Mustafa Niazi, and I'm once again joined by the lovely Alia, this time joined with me as a part of the VTubeverse as a disembodied voice.
Hi, thank you so much. It's so lovely to be here again. I'm so excited to be back.
Great to have you back here with us, Alia, and also a big shout out here for being the first returning guest I've ever had here on the channel. Hopefully not the
Yay!
last, but the first ever returning guest. And don't worry to you fans out there who loved the last top three video we did, which if you haven't checked that out, absolutely go check it out.
Link in the description
Yep,
down
yep,
below
yep.
for my face reveal.
Yeah. I was like, for one of the proudest videos I think I've
Mhm.
made so far. But I was thinking, so people who are fans of that video and fans of the video that just came out as of the time of us recording this video, Chris and Blake hopefully will both make a return to this channel at some point in the near future. We will have to see when. But for today, we have a very, very special recording in mind for you guys today. Today, we are taking a look at one of our absolute all-time favorite shows. If you want to.
It's me.
Wow, who would have
Wow,
guessed
you
it?
didn't read the thumbnail or the title.
Yes, the thumbnail, the title, the fact I've talked about Ruby like 30 times on the channel, you
You haven't been
know.
following the channel. This must be news to you.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what we're gonna be talking about today. We got a lot of thoughts.
definitely. It's we look at Ruby through very different perspectives from each other. We both absolutely love the show, but definitely like we see very different things for it, I'd say.
Yeah, definitely. And we've talked like, off camera a lot about like our feelings and we found there's a lot that we overlap on, which I think is really interesting.
Mhm.
Um, but I don't know, how do you want to start this video? Do you want to start talking about like, the positives, like what like, the show means to us personally and like what we, start off on a good note.
Yeah, like I said, it's an amazing place to start off on. But before I do get into that, I would like to give a little disclaimer just because I know my community here isn't like that. I'd like to think my community isn't like this, but it's something that I've seen definitely on the online verse that's made me a little wary about how I go about making videos like this. Alia and I have very different views from each other, but I want you guys to notice how we are still friends by the time that this gets over with.
Unless it turns into a heated shouting match, which I hope not.
I'm
I don't think it will.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm very much hoping that it won't either. I mean, like, listen, so far they haven't, so I mean, I'm kind of hoping that will continue. But
We
like,
don't condone that behavior.
absolutely not. And there's, I want to put that out there just for people to hear of like, we are able to have these discussions and we both know that our what we discuss, despite being different, we both have each other's like we know each other's perspective and we respect them even if we don't necessarily agree with.
Yeah, I'm really glad you gave that disclaimer because I've like I'm not really big in like fandom online communities, but
So,
from what I've seen, there's a lot of like hate and negativity and like people with like completely different viewpoints and they just like go at each other. And it's like really sad to see because I think like even people who aren't like who don't like Ruby or like have only heard about it, they know about the fandom. And I think the fandom is, like really brings the show down, which is really sad. But also online that's why I think it's good to start with like what the show means to us because like online you don't really get that, you don't get to really hear like how personal it can be to people, and then that's how viewpoints can get like kind of lost, if that makes sense.
oh, yeah,
So
no,
I
that
think
that absolutely does. Yeah, it's just like it's like you said, just we don't like get to see some of that love that we all share. We all, the fandom, the community, all of us, we love the show so much, but there is so much of that's like, oh, we think that we see how the show should be done differently from how it is. Which even we, like Ollie and I, can say that there are things that we think the show could definitely do better. But we also do understand like there is at least like somewhat of like a direction that they're going with. And it's like we want to understand that direction while also giving our input onto where we think it should go.
yeah, and there's this really like toxic mindset going around that like if you like criticize something, oh, you're a hater, and I
Exactly.
think like for like the stuff that we hold like the most dear, it's like even more important than ever to like critique it because
Yeah.
that's like what's worse is like turning a blind eye to flaws, and especially if there's some very obvious flaws.
Which we'll get into with this video.
But yeah, we're gonna try to be very respectful. We're not gonna badmouth the creators or the writers. We'll try not to.
Yeah, I mean, if that ends up happening, then so be. But it's also like if you really love something, you accept it for a lot of its flaws, and you accept it
Right.
for a lot of what makes up the show in its entirety. And that's one of the things I've loved talking about with Alia, especially with the show, and
Mhm.
it's why I was so happy when she recommended that we did a video like this talking about it because it's a chance for us to show that to this community. So,
Yeah, and my hope for this video is that like we can kind of like I mean this is like kind of wishful thinking, but like hopefully mend some wounds in the fandom and the show, like to show there really is a lot of common ground between, like critics and fans, which I say those both in quotation marks because, you can be a fan and still be a critic, you can be a critic and still be a fan, which I think a lot of people just can't wrap their head around.
right, yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's just really important to try to find that, commonality and that bridge, which we're going to try to do today.
Yeah, with our two different perspectives. And with that disclaimer out of the way,
That's a very
um,
good disclaimer.
yeah, thank you,
Hmm.
thank you. Saying with that out of the way, though, I think people have heard like enough about like why I love the show. I have a whole like video talking just about that, but I'm sure they would love to hear for you. Like, what is it? What is
Yeah.
it about? Why Ruby? The cycle the philosophical question. Why Ruby? What
Why
was it?
Ruby?
Mhm.
Why? That's a good question. Okay, yeah, so the show really does mean a lot to me. I didn't watch it from the first volume. I got in really late. I got in like literally a month before volume 7 came out.
Really?
Yeah. So I guess I would be a newer fan, even though that was like 4 years ago
Is it actually
now.
for?
Three?
Where's the time
3 or 4
gone?
years ago. I
Where's the
don't know.
time gone?
It's gone away.
Yeah,
But
it is.
anyway, my sister watched the show before me and she got me into it. And my mom is also like really into it as well, which I think is super cute. And so they watched it together and my mom was like, "Ah, you gotta watch this show." And my mom was like obsessing over it. So I'm like, if my mom likes it, then like I gotta like it. So then I watched it and I really liked it. And it like I don't know, I mean this was like right before COVID hit, so I think that like the show definitely helped me, through the pandemic and through COVID. And I was
Right.
like I was really into it, like I've drawn fan art for okay, wait, I'm just gonna say I'm like in the quotes, I'm the critic,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah, just clarify the positions here.
To
Yeah.
clarify,
Yeah.
I'm the critic. But anyway, I'm sorry, what were you
I don't
saying?
know, just to show there is that blur of the line of just like we have very different views on it, but we both also still like said love the show for what it is.
Exactly. And like again, like online is so toxic. I like, posted comments before and had people like being like, "Oh my God, why are you watching the show if you hate it? You're a bigot. You're like a, blah 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 blah." And I'm like, "Okay, like I have like a Ruby poster in my room." Okay. I literally draw fan art. I wrote a fan fiction, which
Yeah,
I'm gonna let you read.
listen,
I
I
gotta
sound
edit it.
yeah.
I have like a Yang Funko Pop. I literally cosplayed as Yang. Yang is one of my favorite characters in like, any medium like ever. I really like her. So if you're gonna come at me and be like, "Oh my God, you're like blah blah blah," like stop. Just no.
Just no.
Just don't.
Also, hashtag Rooster Teeth give Yang development.
Period, which we are going to talk about later. And also my mom, like after like this, like I think it was during Volume 7 was airing. My mom like she almost lost her arm, which she didn't, which is really thankful. But she really looked up to Yang because Yang lost her arm and she was able to keep on going. And I'm not even kidding. Like Yang actually really helped my mom get through it, and she realized like, oh, it's okay if like I do end up losing my arm because Yang got through it. And also she was watching Full Metal Alchemist at the same time with Edward Elric. And so I
Right,
guess
yeah.
that really shows how impactful, stories can be to people, like how they can actually really affect real life. And so I think like for that aspect alone, I'll always be thankful for it. Um, and yeah, I guess that's kind of the really quick gist.
I mean, it's a beautiful thing for it. It's like similarly, like I've said on the channel before, it's like Ruby reached out to me very similarly, just like it I started watching the show like I think around like when volume 4 was just coming out. Like I'll always
Yeah, you
remember
were way
yeah.
before me.
I mean I mean it's just like I had a friend of mine who similarly like just wouldn't stop talking about the show and was like, "Oh, you gotta see it, you gotta see it, you gotta see it." And
Hmm.
I was hesitant about it at first, I'll admit. But then I saw like I think the volume 4 trailer when Ruby fought against the I forgot what the Grimm's name is, and I feel like the community's gonna shoot me for not knowing it, but the big gorilla Grimm. What was
Oh,
that?
I have no idea.
It's okay. You
We're fake fans.
absolutely, yeah, no, confirmed, confirmed, right here.
Hashtag
But just like that Grim, whatever that Grim is called, we never see it again after that trailer. Or we kind of do, but like not really. So that Grim, when Ruby fought against that Grim in that one episode, that one trailer, that's when I started watching Ruby, and I fell madly in love with the show from the very very first episode of it. It's just like I liked the mystery to it. I liked the feel of a lot of these characters. I loved the fact that we had so many characters that we could sink our teeth into that had so much story to them. But I think like my love for it really kicked off after volume three, which I think that is a hot topic on its own because of like that's the like the quote unquote turning point of
Yeah,
Ruby.
there's always that divide of like, oh my God, the first three volumes were the best, and everything else after it is trash, which is incorrect. Actually, you
Yeah,
know what? You can have your own opinion because that's what we're here to talk about.
I mean,
You
yeah, it's just like
like to each their own,
yeah,
but
absolutely.
like I get what you're saying.
It's like, volume three, it's very near and dear to my heart, not necessarily just because it's a continuation of the story, but like
Wait, volume four, you said,
volume,
sorry.
I meant volume, I
Oh,
meant volume three, I meant volume three.
three?
Yeah, volume
Okay.
three. Yep. So that's when everything fell apart for these characters, and as I said in one that in the video not that long back, I loved Ruby because of the fact that it was all about those characters rising back up from that fall. And while I can't say I've ever experienced quite a catastrophic fall in the way that they did, around that time, that was when I stopped being friends with a few people. It's when I had a lot of this like self-reflective look on what's going on around me and realizing my values when it comes to my friends and when it comes to so many things around me. And seeing how all these characters, from Blake to Weiss to Ruby to Yang, how all of them rose back up from that disaster, that's what sold me on the show. And I'll say with the view of Yang in mind, just her ability to get over her trauma when it comes to losing her arm, fighting against an opponent who, overhyped by the way, was
Are
who.
you talking about Adam?
Yes, I was gonna
Okay,
say just like
we got opinions.
yeah, we do, we definitely.
Stay tuned.
It's just like Adam was built up to be such like a presence and a threat to Yang,
Mhm.
and the fact that Yang was able to build up that courage to overcome this like dominance that I felt Adam held, at least at that point in the series, that she was able to overcome that fear, I thought was so inspiring. That was so impressive for Yang as a character, and that
Mhm.
was, I think, one of the highlights of her arc.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, do we want to quickly say like, our favorite volume, our favorite episode or episodes, and then our favorite characters?
I mean, like favorite arcs and volumes, like it's hard for me to pick exactly one because it's just like there's so many amazing moments that happen throughout the show that like highlight a lot of the things that I love about the show. I could go on like a long, long ramble about that. I think the moment I'm gonna pick as one of my favorites is probably when they revealed Salem in the first place because
Like the end of volume three?
yeah, the one where it's like this is the beginning of the end,
Yeah.
Ozpin. That scene, like either that or the scene with Raven and Crow in volume four, was it?
Yeah, that's volume four in the
Yeah,
bar.
that scene.
Yeah.
So I love those scenes so much just because of the way they've ramped up the intensity, the way they built up the mystery of like, who's the Spring Maiden? Who is this mystery woman we're seeing at the end of volume three? Like
Mm.
the way they build up those kind of things in those scenes, I thought was so cool, and I just loved being able to see like how that built into the
Yeah, such a
story.
cliffhanger at the end of
Yeah,
volume three. Like,
absolutely. And I love like just I was terrified of Salem as a character when that scene dropped because I'm just like, whoa, 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 what's going
it's
on?
like, well, hold on, what?
Exactly.
What direction did this just take?
Like, especially just with the line of like, which is why I will do everything in my power to snuff it out. It was just like, whoa,
Yeah,
that changed.
it's really, really cool. And then so is your favorite volume four?
Probably volume four is up there, if nothing else, just for the opening. Again, like the whole theme of like, let's just live, let's overcome the struggles of the past, like that
Mm-hmm.
kind of theme that carried into. I want to say like all the way to volume six, and then it kind of changed a little bit into volume
Yeah.
seven. So like, just that theme and that era of Ruby, I thought like that was my favorite part of the show. I like again, it's hard for me to pin down exactly like, where in the show I'd say was my favorite, like anything in general.
That's fair. Yeah, and then your favorite characters.
And again, like it's another like for me. Okay, that was like a little easier to narrow down
Hmm.
and say like between like either like Blake because I think I've talked about before just like her overcoming a lot of the traumas of her past and being able to gain that confidence to not run away from them. I thought was so relatable, at least to me, as someone who was so afraid of their own shadow and afraid of what was going on in their own lives and of the control that they had to take in their own destiny that I loved seeing Blake's path of overcoming that. And then also Crow to a degree, just like I
You can't go wrong with
you
Crow.
really can't. It's just like I love just the tragedy of his character, and it just there's something that is so touching about the fact that he can't be with his family because of the curse that he brings to them. And there's so much I've delved into with other friends talking about like what that implies for the series overall, what that implies for just his character and some of the things that happen off screen. And it's just I love this character so much. I want to see so much more for Crow as far as just his involvement in the story. Because I mean, like beyond being connected to Summer and all these other things of the past, I think he has such a strong like semblance in the show where he can guide these characters into something.
Semblance as in a different sex. Um, oh yeah, Crow's great. Okay, my favorite volume is volume 7. Okay, I absolutely love volume 7. I think that's a hot take because I know a lot of people don't like volume 7, which I understand. I totally get it, especially compared to like earlier volumes, but I think it's definitely has to do with like that was when I first like was getting into the show, volume 7 was the first volume I was watching like week to week and I was like, theorizing what's going to happen and like, I didn't get like so I couldn't get spoiled for it because it was like Aaron
Right,
once a
like you were
week.
just like going along with the yeah, I get
Yeah, I really like Volume 7. My favorite episode, I also really like Volume 2 as well, which I don't know. I think Volume 3 is considered like, the best volume according to most people. Which again, I mean, Volume 3 is great, but I really like Volume 2 a lot because I really like the scene where like Team Ruby went on that mission with like Odebeck, is that his name? The like green haired teacher.
Oobleck, Oobleck, yeah.
Oobleck.
Oobleck. I
Yep.
love Oobleck so
Oobleck.
much.
They
Bring
went,
him back,
yes,
please.
they went on like the mission with him, and then he asked them all like why they wanted to become huntresses, and then they all like had a moment with each other where they like confessed like why they really want to do it, and I really like that like character driven moment. I think that was
Right.
really well done, and that's why I really like Volume 2. But yeah, Volume 7 is my favorite. I think my favorite episode is Gravity. It is a really good episode.
That's
Um,
the Ironwood versus
yeah,
yep, that's
Ironwood
the
versus Watts, and it's where Salem like comes in like the office and she like tells everyone like
right.
she's coming and just like the suspense of that because I did not expect that at all like for her to actually come and be like yo I'm on my way.
Yeah, like I'm here. Like it's happening. Like
Like that episode is just 10 out of 10 I think.
oh,
um
absolutely. No, I love that episode too. It just again like it taps into that terror that I think Salem was always meant to have as a
oh,
character.
she was so scary and
Yeah,
it wasn't even her, it was like her like a form of her, like she wasn't actually in the room, she was just like broadcasting like her
even that
presence.
scared the living out of all of us. Like,
The music, like I could literally like again, I'm like I have my problems with the show, but like I can recognize when they do something right. And I think like that was really a moment that they got right. Like, the music, like the cinematography, all these fancy
yeah,
words, we're film
Stan,
majors,
yeah.
screenwriting majors.
So forgot to mention that.
Yeah. But yeah, I really like Gravity. My favorite character, surprise, my favorite character is Ironwood. Oh my God.
Yeah,
Wow.
I said, just like,
Yeah, so you can probably see where this video is going
yeah.
at some point.
I
Um,
will say that is also one of the biggest like flux points between me and Ollie.
yeah,
Like I'm not like I don't hate Ironwood as much as I used to. I
yeah.
will admit now. I was not a big fan of him before I met Alia,
Oh my God,
but
thank
definitely
you.
he's not my favorite character because, and I'll get into that again
Yeah,
later.
no, there are reasons
Yeah.
why you don't have to like him, and I
Uh-huh.
think there's valid reasons why people don't.
Yeah, it's
Like I recognize that. I really do, but I really like him. We'll talk about that more later. And I also love Penny. I love her so much. Uh,
I would say I do
yeah.
love her too, but also Rooster Teeth, please never bring her back. This hurts too much.
No, the pain. The pain is so real.
Hmm.
I really like the Atlas crew. Like I really like Atlas. That's my favorite like a plot point.
Like the
Like the
Aesops, like the,
yeah, I mean, I guess I like the Aesop's. I don't know. Like I like like that like I feel like that arc had a lot of potential and I liked where they were going with it. Um but yeah, I mean, we're gonna talk about that later.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
we are.
Yeah, but yeah. So yeah, that's the good stuff.
That's the easy part, the good part out of the way.
Yes.
Yeah, now we get into ripping the show to absolute shreds. Here we go.
Oh yeah. So where do you want to start with this? Because there's
Uh, I
This
mean,
is a doozy.
oh yeah, no, there's definitely a lot, and I think honestly the best place to start is I'd say like going from like where the show started or where it felt like it was going from the first and how that's changed over time.
Hmm.
But particularly I think the lens I want to look at is actually through Ironwood. Funny enough.
Oh yeah, I can talk a lot about that.
Oh yeah, no, I know you can. It's exactly where I want to go with this. So it's like it's the whole thing of when he was introduced all the way back in volume
I
two.
can't believe he was introduced that early because I feel
Was it?
like yeah, it was volume two,
It was like
and
okay.
I feel like he was such a forgettable character when he was first introduced.
I honestly I remember him very vividly
Hmm.
from volume two. But I mean like part of that also comes from the fact that a friend of mine, Chris, funny enough, keeps having me read Ruby fan fictions a
Mm.
lot and
Shout out to
shout out to
Chris.
Chris, 100%. Listen, best buddy is out here, best buddy.
Round of applause for Chris. I don't
Yeah.
know you, Chris, but you're
Listen,
cool.
he's one of my best buddies out there. But in any case, he's been having me read a lot of the Ruby fan fictions.
Mm.
Highly, highly recommend looking into them if you have the chance. I don't remember the author's name off the top of my head, but he spends a lot of time looking back at the early volumes of like
Right.
changing some events from the early stuff to change what
The
happens later on.
future.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
you
Yeah.
you said you haven't really rewatched Ruby that much, right? So you
If at all, yeah.
okay.
I say I only watched Ruby like the first time through, and then I've never had time to go back and
Wow, that's
rewatch
so
the other seasons.
interesting.
Yeah,
I think I've watched it twice all the way through. I watched Volume 7 probably 10 times.
which I respect to
Thank
do.
you. I've watched Volume 8 3 times. I don't know why. I didn't watch Volume 9. I watched the second half.
Again, that's 100% fair. It's like there's different like again, there's different points of the series that like it
Yeah,
hooked me and like a lot of things like that. And it's like I want to be able to go back and rewatch Ruby, and it's not that like I don't. It's not that I'm not interested in it or anything like that. It's
it's a
just
time.
exactly
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a big time commitment.
Which I say is kind of funny given the fact that I've not watched, I've read through all of One Piece 3 times over now. But
Literally, I can't.
same time, it's like that's different from like when you're watching a
Yeah,
show and like going through the beats of that and that kind of thing. It's just
yeah.
like it's why I've struggled so much now with like watching shows. It's just like I want to give all my attention to it, but then just like my mind is just not as like
That's
focused
so
as it
fair.
used to be to like be able to sit down to commit to watching a show like I used
That's
to.
so fair. Anyway, we were talking about my guy
Right,
Ironwood.
yeah, we were.
Let's get back to that. So,
Oh, fine. So, like I always remembered his character from early on, and it's like I was always interested in him,
yeah.
but I never liked that he was like I loved Ozpin from like the very first episode, and the fact that he wasn't necessarily like he was on Ozpin's side while also not being on Ozpin's
Yeah.
side early
Yeah,
on,
no, yeah.
and I didn't know how I wanted to feel about that. It was like it felt like he wasn't really listening to the advice Ozpin was giving, and then when
Oh, he
Ozpin
definitely wasn't.
yeah. I was gonna say so then it's like at the end of that volume, I think didn't Ozpin like get removed or something like that, and then
Yeah,
was like, "I'm
I can
sorry."
talk a lot about this.
Yeah, so it's just like that was the moment where I stopped liking him as much, especially because after that is when we get like his machines got taken over. Like he didn't let Watts get in, but at the same time, it's like it feels like a lot of circumstances that happened around
Mm-hmm.
that kind of like
Oh
give that
boy.
image. So like I didn't like him because I fully blame Ironwood for like a lot of stuff that happened in
That
Volume
is so
3.
interesting. This is why I'm so excited to do this video because like I do not blame you that you blame him. You know? Like that's like what the narrative clearly showed.
Just like the robots were there. He didn't have
Right.
to have them, and it's like.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Let me can I
Oh
just
no, please, I-
okay. So I'm gonna put this out in the open right here, right now. I do not like what they did with Ironwood in Volume 8. That is gonna be a big talking point
oh
that
yeah,
we're
no,
gonna
no,
talk about.
definitely.
But I think it is so easy to look at where he ended up, like at the end of like his arc in quotation marks, whatever you want to call that. And then look back at like earlier volumes and like pick it apart with the hindsight. You know what I mean? Like after you see what happened to him in volume 8, you can be like, "Oh my god, the seeds were always there. He was always going to turn evil. Oh my god, it was foreshadowing."
Yeah,
Which it wasn't, and I'm going to tell you
absolutely
exactly
not.
why, okay? So this is why I didn't really care about Ironwood when he was first introduced. Like, sorry, buddy. Like I literally forgot about him.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, I literally forgot about him until Volume 7, and then Volume 7 made me like him because he was written so well, which I think was an accident. But
I, they definitely have given the like the feel that it
yeah.
definitely
Oh,
was.
we accidentally wrote this really good character.
Yeah, backtrack. Yeah.
In volume two, he was set up to look suspicious, right? Because
Okay.
this is like one of the first like main adult characters we really meet besides, Ozpin and Glinda. Um, and we learn like, he's the head of like a whole military and he comes in with his airships and we learn like him and Oz like, have a history together and Oz like doesn't want him to bring these ships, but Iron was like, no, like I need to bring these ships. But at this point we don't know about Salem, right? As
Right.
the viewers.
Like, right, all
Right.
we know about is like Cinder is somewhere in the back, and she's the big
Exactly.
bad.
So when you first watch it, you're like, bro, why are you bringing like your whole army and your robots to like a peace festival, right? Because it was for like the Amity Arena. Shout out to Amity Blight.
Yeah. What's the favorite character?
What was I saying? It was a peace festival, right?
Okay, yeah.
And to the public, that was all it was. It was peace. But because, Ironwood and Crow and Ozpin were in the inner circle and they knew about Salem, right?
Mhm.
Like Ironwood wanted to be cautious. He was very overly cautious. You know what? No, he wasn't. No, he
I
wasn't.
mean,
Track that. No, he wasn't.
yeah.
No, he was not. Anyway, he brought his ships because he thought Salem might do something, but Ozpin was so convinced they were in a time of peace. But I think Ozpin knew something was going to happen, but he didn't want to admit it. Like, do you remember a lot of that arc? Like Ozpin was like, "We're in a time of peace. Like your airships are only going to cause panic because the public doesn't know about Salem." And Ironwood's like, "I just want to like be prepared in case she does come." And guess what? She did come.
Yeah, I mean, but I will counter against that just
Hmm.
because, like, I do remember like the line when Crow showed up for the first time in Volume Three, when I think he gave the line of like, if this is the size of our military, or if this is the size of our defense, what is it that we're expecting to fight against? Which
Right.
I think that definitely like plays into like a lot of things I love about Salem is like she doesn't need a big army to do a lot of damage. She
They
doesn't
do the work for her. And
exactly.
that's
Yeah.
that's okay, let me just finish my tangent here
Yeah.
real
Go
quick.
ahead. Go ahead.
So
Please.
anyway, Ironwood was like really, really shady because I'll admit he was so shady. Like, why are you bringing your army? And then he like got Oz kicked out of the council,
Yeah.
which is so funny. I'm sorry,
So
that
like
was hilarious.
strike one, strike
Straight
two.
going right, but okay, but in these first three arcs, he was set up to look suspicious, and the big reveal was that he was a good guy. That was the first three volumes. They wanted the audience to think, oh my god, this military like dictator is so evil. He's the one who's going to like because there was like a mysterious presence in the background, and they're like, oh, he's the one who's going to turn against Oz. He got Oz kicked off the council. He brought his army, but then the plot twist was that he wasn't evil. He was a good guy, and the bad guys hacked his army against him, and he was like, what's happening?
There's also the third strike of him having Torchwick on his ship during Volume Three that I also wanted to
Wait,
know.
why is that a strike though?
I mean, I say it is because that it's like him being still like what I don't understand with that whole choice of keeping him on the ship. Like I get Torchwick is
Hmm.
a criminal, and I get like keeping him incarcerated and that kind of thing. But also, like, couldn't he have dropped him off at Atlas, gotten him like off the ship and away from all of
Yeah, but
this?
like fly all the way back to Atlas.
I'm talking about a dangerous criminal who did a lot of damage
That's
because
fair.
he was
Okay,
there.
that's fair. That's fair. But okay, anyway, I'm not saying Ironwood was
Yeah.
100% right. A
Yeah,
lot of
no.
what he did was like reckless and like really like extreme and like but there was like he had a whole mini arc. He didn't get a lot of screen time,
No, he didn't.
and I'm trying to remember all of this here. He didn't get a lot of screen time, but there was this one moment where Ruby like she found out that the White Fang had a base, which was why she went with the green haired teacher.
Oh, with yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. When they went to Mountain Glen, that
Yes,
scene. Yes,
Mountain
yes,
Glen.
yes, yes,
She
yes.
like Ruby overheard Cinder talking about the base at like the prom episode. Um, and then Ruby told Ozpin about that, but she didn't. I'm trying to remember this. They found out about the base, but she didn't tell Ozpin how she found out about it. And then
Yeah.
Ozpin was like, "Okay, you can go investigate that." And then Ironwood was like, "Why are you sending four children to go investigate a threat?" And then Ozpin was like, "You gotta trust me." And then Ironwood was like, "Why should I trust you for sending literal children to this base, right?" And then Ironwood had a talk with Glinda. I ship them, by the way.
I I think a lot of the fan
Right.
base does, and I would say definitely I see it. I
Yeah.
definitely see it.
But then Ironwood had a talk with Glinda, and I really like this scene. I don't know if you remember the scene where they were like overlooking like the ship, his ships or whatever.
Yes, yes, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Ironwood's like, I trust Oz for years. We both trusted him for years. Like, how could he act so like, rash? And then Glinda's like, you should trust him. Like it's time you stop talking about trust and start showing it. And then
Mm.
after that conversation, Ironwood trusted Ozpin to let the children go investigate the crime, right?
I believe so. Like I know that scene because again, like it's one of the things like in the fan fictions they keep drawing attention to like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the older scenes from the
Right.
earlier volumes. So it's like some of the scenes like I am a little bit more familiar with. I don't remember like the exact like what was said
Yeah.
for that. I don't actually remember a lot of Ironwood's involvement in the Mountain Glen. Like mostly what I
Right.
remember of that was just like Oz showing up being like, I know you know what's going on, and then just being like, yeah, so I'm just gonna bend the rules a little bit, and
Right,
then
right. But anyway, what my point I'm trying to make here is that Ironwood ended up trusting Ozpin, right? And
right.
I think he had a right not to trust him by sending inexperienced kids into danger, right? Because Oz
Mhm.
was sending like this team, which like, you can argue how competent Team Ruby are all you want, if it was like right to send them there or not. But anyway, Team Ruby ended up triggering the train. Do you remember the train?
Yeah, no, I will always remember the chain
Yeah.
because of the Y missile.
Right, exactly.
Listen, that's why.
Yeah, writers, how could you forget Swine?
Exactly. Bring the swine. I will bring that back from the old channel. Bring back swine.
Anyway, I have a point I'm trying to make here. I
Yeah,
swear to
it's fine.
God.
That's so
Mm,
fun.
So anyway, because Team Ruby went to Mountain Glen, they ended up triggering the train to launch weeks before it was supposed to launch, and the train ended up like causing a lot of like chaos in like the streets of like Vale. Remember, like it like exploded out, and there was like a whole fight scene.
Right, with Team Coffee and
Yeah, Team Coffee,
I listen,
exactly.
love Team Coffee
And that
actually.
was like, yes, hashtag Team Coffee.
Yeah,
Coco and Velvet and
best
other
characters. The
guys.
other yeah, yeah. Listen, I only know the characters from A, the fanfics, and B from reading all the books. You
Mm-hmm.
have Coco, Velvet, Yadashi, Fox,
Oh, right, Fox.
and that's it. Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's a
I
cool
was like,
team.
isn't there one more member? No, there's not.
That's a cool
There's
team.
only four. Yeah.
Anyway, this is a chain of events here. So because Ozpin sent the inexperienced children to a criminal hideout, the kids messed up because they're kids. So you can't blame Team Ruby for that. They messed up. They caused the train. They like Torchwick found out they were there, and so Torchwick wanted them to launch the train so they wouldn't interfere with it. They launched the train. People ended up getting hurt. There ended up being a fight in Vale. Okay,
Mhm.
and that's when Ironwood was like, "Okay, Oz, I trusted you to do it your way." And then he went behind his back and was like, "I'm going to do it my way." Now, it was rude that he went behind Oz's back.
Yeah.
It was very rude,
It was
right?
yeah.
But I think he had a fair point to do it because all he did was go behind Oz's back to the like council for the Vital Festival. This is like it's just a festival, and he was like, "I'm going to be in charge of security now." Like that's not that bad.
Which I'd say, like or hate Ironwood either way, like especially in my case as someone who doesn't entirely like him, like
Mhm.
you can't deny that like of all the kingdoms that exist in Ruby, or at least from what we knew up until that point, they honestly I would have trusted Ironwood and him with security because of that Atlas is just
Exactly.
like the pinnacle of like military of
And no other kingdom has a military, which I think
exactly,
is
yeah.
like I know the show was trying to like twist it and do like military is bad kind of in volume
Ish,
8,
yeah.
which like I didn't like because it just doesn't make sense to me in a world where like the Grim and Salem exist that they'd be like military bad because you need the military to fight against Salem.
I mean, like, I don't know, like, they never talk about other, like, fighting forces, I think, per se, in the other kingdoms. I do think, like, the fighting forces are supposed to be, like, the huntsmen, which, like, I
Right.
think they touch on that more in Volume 5, where it's like,
Where they're
hey,
going missing and like
exactly, like,
in
that was supposed to be, like, their best chance at defending people from Salem. But then, what's his face, Leo gave them all up and that kind of thing.
exactly. Yeah, I think it is a fact that like the writers confirmed that Atlas is the only kingdom with a military.
So I'll take your word for it. I actually don't remember
Yeah, I
that.
mean, I could be wrong. I think that's a fact, but you can fact check me.
Listen, actually, I'll trust you on that one. I don't remember.
Okay, thank you. Anyway, I'm gonna finish my tangent here anyway. Okay. So, like you said about Salem, is she what she does best, and which is why I think she's also a really good villain, is she takes people's good intentions and she twists them to her advantage, which again, what I was talking about with the hindsight, I think it's really important to look at like you said you blame Ironwood for the fall of Beacon. but I think he was the biggest victim in the Fall of Beacon because he, like, his heart was in the right place. He might not have done everything right, but the reason he brought his military, it wasn't so he could be like, oh my God, I'm so cool. Look at my army. Like, I'm
Right.
such a big shot. He brought it to literally save lives from Salem. And I just don't get how people can, like, twist that to be like he's evil because he brought his military to defend against Salem because he thought she would attack, and guess what? She did attack, but then she used his desire to help people, and she turned his army against him. And then Cinder was filming it, and so to like the whole world, it looked like Ironwood's army turned on him, and he was responsible for it.
Yeah.
But it wasn't his fault, right? He fed into it, right? He let her do it, but he was like a victim
Right.
as much as everyone else.
Especially, it's not that I don't view him as a victim. He definitely is, but at the same time, it's more so like the fact that there was no like counter strategy or alternative to when the drones all turned on him. It was like
Mhm.
the over reliance on them all being machines. I
That's
think
and
is
that's his fatal flaw is like
yeah,
his over reliance on his military, but that doesn't make you evil if you have weapons that you
right,
want to use against the big bad.
right. But like
You know what I mean?
yeah, but the key word is that like he can rely on his military. That's fine. Like when we
Hmm.
see later on, like when he's relying on the Aesops, when he's relying on them, that I was okay with because there you have like a human who's behind it, a human who
Exactly.
can understand and who's I don't want to say not as likely because there are people who've been bribed in the show or
Hmm.
you know had things happen to them where they don't act the way that they probably should
Exactly. I
be.
will also say
Mhm.
the one person who could hack his army was Watts, and he thought Watts was dead.
Which is also true. Yeah,
Right?
everyone thought Watts
So
was dead.
so
Yeah.
literally the whole Fall of Beacon was Salem like if you rewatch it, the whole Fall of Beacon was just like Salem and Cinder manipulated Ironwood to look like the bad guy, and then the whole world believed it,
Yeah, which
and
was
the viewers believed it too.
brilliantly, yeah. They did
Right?
perfectly.
And I think it was really well done, and I really like it, like what they did.
Hmm.
And then in the Fall of Beacon, Ironwood is like he's like fighting his own robots. He's like destroying his robots because he doesn't care about them. He wants to help people, and he
Right.
feels bad for what happened. Like it's not his fault.
Just like
Like I get what you're saying,
it's like
but
just like have like one or two human soldiers on the field is the thing. Because just like
he did though.
did he?
Yeah.
I thought his entire military was
No,
robot.
no, no, no. It
What
wasn't.
humans did he have there? I
He
don't
had like
remember.
huntsmen. They were like patrolling the grounds
Did he?
and. Okay, well now you're saying he should have brought more huntsmen, but other people are like he shouldn't have brought any.
I feel like he should have because it just like my whole thing with it is just more so that like robots in general I think invite the potential of being hacked or
Right,
taken over or put a virus in or blown up or who knows what else or just like
right.
there's so many things that can happen and like I understand through a perspective like a military of like you want soldiers that are not I don't want to say expendable but like you want to be able to have people that you can get out there
Well,
and do
also the
dangerous stuff.
whole reason he created robotic soldiers was like he says this quote. He's like, I mean I don't know the quote exactly, but he was like given a presentation in like Vale when like Ruby and Penny were like walking around. You
Yeah,
remember
well,
that? He was like introducing his big robots,
yeah,
and he's
it's
like,
when we learned Penny was a robot in the first that
exactly,
episode. Yeah, yeah,
exactly, and he's like, I made these so we can try to limit humans on the battlefield because he didn't want people to die. So
which
he did it with the again. There's a whole big
yeah.
thing about like intent versus outcome, and
Right.
his intent, like his heart was in the right place, but the
Definitely, yeah.
outcome might have been skewed, right?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say like
Yeah.
it's just again like most of just I blame it just because of that. I feel like that could have been avoided for that reason. And I
It
do
definitely could have
understand.
been
Yeah.
avoided, but who could have predicted
Right,
the
no
fall of Beacon? You know what
not a
I
single
mean?
person could have. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I do get that. Again, it's just like it's mostly just like if they could have avoided the machines getting hacked, I feel like that would have changed the paradigm so much for it.
definitely. Yeah, like if his machines weren't there, fall of Beacon wouldn't have happened.
You still have the Grim, which like we have no idea how they would have handled the Dragon Grim, especially by the way.
Right.
Yeah, which it's still not dead, by the way, people. Keep
Is it
that in mind.
really not?
As far as we know, like it's just frozen on
Oh,
top of the thing.
wait, you're literally so right. I completely forgot about that.
It's like we never touch back with Beacon, which is the other like thing that I
Yeah.
want to say. Where it's like that dragon is still there. Like we saw with the Dolphin Grim, I think in Volume 6. Like
There was a dolphin grim?
yeah, like a big lumbering. Leviathan, that's what it is. Yes, like that Grim when Ruby used her eyes on it. Like yeah, she turned it to stone. And like we've seen Grim get turned to stone and then like fall to pieces when they connect with the ground, like that Nevermore Maria used her eyes on. But
Yeah.
like we also have seen that they can technically survive being turned to stone like that. So like
So we don't know like if they destroyed it or like how they cleaned up Beacon and yeah, we never
exactly
got the aftermath. And
exactly
I wish we
'cause
did.
even like all we know is like they keep seeing Glinda's cleaning up things that their teachers were trying to rebuild Beacon Vale after
Yeah.
that happened, but that's it. We have no idea, what happened to the relic. We have no idea what
We
happened
don't
with
even know yet like where the relic
we don't even
is.
know what the relic is. Just
Literally. Like,
it's yeah.
oh, that's so true.
There's so much that we don't know with that, but it's also just like
Yeah.
we don't know like what would have happened if Ironwood did change his strategy, even just that littlest bit. But I do think that that is most of where like a lot of my distrust for him comes from. It's like you can talk about like the points with Ironwood of like, or not Ironwood, Torchwick of like
Hmm.
why he kept him on the ship. The scene of the which I wanted to reference why I said that was a strike of like why he went to talk with Torchwick. I think a lot of I think even you yourself told me people took that scene to mean like they were working together or something like that.
Actually, when I remember that scene when they talked, and I feel like that scene was set up when he was like to his guards, he's like, "Leave us. We need to talk privately." I feel like that scene was set up for them to be like, "Oh my God, look, he's the mastermind behind it." But then he wasn't, you know? I feel like
Right.
that was a scene where you're like, "Okay, like, should we trust him?" And that's like, I think that's what they set up, and I think they did a great job with that
They
you
did,
didn't know if you
absolutely.
could trust him
Hmm.
in the first volumes he's in, and I like that. And I mean I get your point why you don't trust him. I think it's just
Hmm.
important to look at it as like the grander scale and just how like it just shows how good Salem is that she like
Right, of
turns
course.
like
Hmm.
her
She,
thing like she uses the good guys to get what she wants and she barely has to do anything.
yep,
Like they know
that
she's
is her
perfect.
whole MO. It's just like
Mm,
it's my favorite part of any villain. It's why I liked Terry Silver from Cobra Kai. It's why I like
mm-hmm.
Bellows from Owl House.
Exactly.
Just all those villains, what they're so good at doing is using what our heroes think to his advantage, using that to be able to get in their
Mhm.
heads, to make them do what they want them to do, to make them their puppets in this. And Salem, I think, does this especially well to a degree that I became so afraid of her. Just like, how do I know I'm trusting my own thoughts, not just what she wants me to think?
Exactly, yeah. And that's yeah, where was I going with this?
Oh, it's mostly
Yeah,
Ironwood talking about, yeah.
I'm sorry I took up the whole like half hour talking about
Listen,
this guy.
it's an important.
Have a time limit, do we?
No, not no. Listen, I posted an hour long video on the channel before. I don't care
This is
about
probably going to be
limits.
a 2 hour video.
It's 100%
All
fine. It's
right.
like so long as the conversation is still riveting. That
Oh
is
yes.
all I care for. And it's
Um,
like with Ironwood especially, just like his character, I think is the biggest point between the two of us. Where we
that we
like
disagree with.
exactly. And it's
Yeah.
like even I can admit like there were scenes where like I had a funny arc with Ironwood where it was like after volume three I didn't like him and I liked him less and less with like the scenes with Jacques and a lot of those scenes.
Those scenes are so good.
No, they're good scenes. They are good scenes. Don't get me wrong.
Bro,
It's just
can we talk about those scenes for a minute?
sure.
Do
Like
you
okay,
remember?
like which one do you want to
Do you
start
remember
with? That's the question.
in volume four when when Weiss was at the fancy party?
Oh yeah, when Ironwood stepped up and
Yes.
yes, that was a good
When
scene. That was a
Ironwood
good
and
scene.
Weiss are the only ones at that party who were at the Fall of Beacon, and
Hmm.
remember, like the rest of the world, all they saw from the Fall of Beacon was Cinder's broadcast, and she
Hmm.
purposely angled the broadcast to show like the Atlas soldiers attacking people,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And then she broadcasted it to like the whole world, so then all of the other continents thought that Atlas caused the Fall of Beacon, but then
Yeah.
everyone in Atlas like hated the rest of the world for thinking that, and that's what Salem wanted. She wanted the world to think Atlas was responsible.
Right. To
She
turn
wanted
them
them to
against each
think
other.
Oz was also
Yeah.
responsible because she like called out Oz too,
Right.
and then like the whole world turned against each other, and like Atlas got locked down. And then at the party, like all the fancy people were like, "Oh, like those people like they don't appreciate us, and they like deserve what happened to them, and like blah blah blah." And then
Which
Weiss was really angry. I really like Weiss's arc. I really do.
deservedly so.
Yeah,
That
and
scene.
she
Yeah.
was so angry, and then Ironwood stood up for her, and he was like, "She's the only one making sense around here."
Yeah, which again, like I love that scene, and that
Yeah,
was very good for Ironwood in that one particular moment. It's like
just
my
that one scene.
it just like every other scene is just like it made me want to question why Iron like I
Well,
love
why don't you like the jock scenes?
so my main argument with those is that like you can make the argument of like he was understandably afraid, which he was. I will say,
100%.
yeah. The fact that he was closing everything off as much as he was in those moments is what I didn't like. I felt like he was playing very much into Salem's hands with it, which like I understand that's the point. That's kind of like what they were aiming to do with this scene. But like it feels like just such a sudden backtrack from the Ironwood we were seeing before, which again, understandably given that he's afraid and understandably so. It
Yeah.
just felt so sudden
I
for
think
me.
I think that's a reasonable angle to look at it, but the way I look at it is like he was at the Fall Begin, he couldn't stop it. Like he had his whole military, all his soldiers, and even with all that power, he couldn't do anything against Salem.
Yeah, like he
Like,
threw it all at
right,
her.
and
Yeah,
because she's always like this was a quote, she's always one step ahead, right? She knows
right.
what's going to happen. And so he didn't want his kingdom to become another beacon, so he closed it off. He made a like barricade around it to try to like keep her out, even though like his army it really couldn't do anything, but like was he supposed to do nothing, you
Well,
know?
yeah, I don't think he should have done nothing, but like what I feel like he should have done is like as just not necessarily like like especially because like you were saying his army didn't do anything against Salem before, so I think it makes even less sense to like rely on
but
that
but then
same
but
military
should
by
he have
closing
just
it.
not tried? Should
No,
he have just let her in? You know what I mean?
right. No,
Like,
I see that point
yeah,
of it.
I just feel like
Mhm.
people, like, not you,
You know,
maybe, I don't know.
it's, I get you. It's
People,
fine.
I feel like it's easy to forget the threat of Salem in the show, which I think is kind of surprising because she's like, she wants to wipe out humanity. That is her goal. She
Right.
wants to
Yeah.
literally kill everyone. Or we don't really know her main goal, but that's what is implied is that she wants to like get the relics and wipe out the world,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, like that's what it sounds like. It the sense I've gotten is like it's a mixture between like she wants to wipe out the entire world, but also
Hmm.
that she wants to die is the
Right.
big thing.
That's the
Yeah,
interpretation I like the best about her is that she just wants to die, which I think is really sad, but
extremely.
obviously
Yeah,
she's still evil.
right. Yeah, no, like
Um,
you can feel for a villain without like
exactly.
like wanting to see like redemption of what
Right, like
they
I
see.
don't want
Yeah,
her reformed, but
yeah,
I
no,
do
neither
feel
do
bad
I.
for
But
her.
yeah, no,
You
I.
know?
It's like she's an understandable villain, but at the same time, it's like you don't want to see like you're not rooting for her, but you understand why she's doing everything
Exactly.
she's
And
doing.
that's
Like
why I do really like her. I think she's a really good character.
I was saying I don't like Terry Silver, but I can admit the fact that just his whole mentality and the whole everything that made up his character was
Mm-hmm.
so
Shout out to
interesting. Yeah.
Cobra Kai.
Shout out to Cobra Kai.
um, but anyway, um,
It's
anyway, so again, like no one knows about Salem right now except for Oz's inner circle, and I guess Team Ruby know about her now. No, actually, at this point they don't.
yeah, they didn't know about Salem. They just knew like
Right.
something else was
Right. So
happening.
the only people who know about Salem right now is Ironwood, Leo, Theodore, Glinda, and Oz is dead. So
Yeah,
it was dead in quotations. He came
yeah,
back.
he reincarnates. Yeah, but then just shows up and Crow. Yeah. And the other headmasters, the other academies, who I don't remember the names off the top of my head.
Those were all of them, right? Theodore
Uh,
is from Shade.
right. Yeah, I forgot the name.
Ironwood, Leo,
Is
and Oz.
it?
It's Theodore.
I thought it was someone else because I remember from the what do you call it, the books for Team Coffee. There was another professor that I remember them talking about. I forget if they were the principal or who they were exactly.
I only know that it's Theodore because Theodore Dorothy because Theodore's supposed to be Dorothy, and you know how
Right,
all of the headmasters are like represent the Wizard of Oz.
right.
So that's
Ozpin, Glinda. Yeah, you
um,
know.
yeah. The small group is the only one who knows about Salem right now. So closing off the kingdom to the rest of the world makes it seem like he's like being, paranoid because they don't know the threat, but he does know the threat.
Right, and it's like, again I understand that again because of that I know like the Salem playbook and that kind
Right.
of thing. But it's like at the same time,
Like
like
you know what he knows.
yeah, I do know what he knows,
You
but like
know.
at the same time, it's like there's one part of me that's like, yes, you're worried about Salem attacking, but it's also like Salem's MO was never necessarily to go on the offensive. It's always to like use that paranoia against you. And
Right,
it's like,
but you have to prepare for like, and I'm not, and again, I'm not like, saying he's 100% justified.
right, yeah, no,
And
I'm
I
just,
like how morally gray it is,
right,
I
yeah.
just like it's not so black and white, and I just think saying like, oh my God, he was evil to block off the kingdom, like that's extreme.
He's not. Like, he's absolutely not. Like
Right.
it's just like I don't feel like that was a good choice.
Like, was it
But
the
at the
right
same,
move? Maybe not. Was it
yeah,
an evil move?
absolutely
Absolutely
not.
not.
Yeah, absolutely
Right,
not. It's
exactly. Exactly. And also the only reason he did that was because of Winter. If you remember in that scene when he was yelling at Jacques, he was like, "I am basing everything off of my reports from your daughter." And he's like, "Winter's one of my best. If she tells me there's a threat in Mistral, then I'm not going to take it lightly." And that's a quote.
that is a quote,
That is a
and I'm
quote.
realizing that now. And it's also like, how much of everything that I don't like about Ironwood is Winter's fault? Do I have to start down?
I love you,
I
Winter.
do. Yeah, no,
I
Winter's a
love
great
you.
character. Yeah,
But she was like in Mistral, and that's how Weiss like remember she was like she overheard the conversation.
Yeah.
She's like, "Oh, I gotta go to Mistral now."
Yes,
She thought Winter was there.
yeah, that was the whole reason why she was going there, but then she ended up in Raven's camp.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But anyway, Ironwood didn't close off the kingdom until Winter told him, "Hey, there's a threat here. You might want to do something." So shout out to Winter.
You shout to her, it's your fault.
Winter's the real bad guy. No,
That's another character I could definitely say like a lot of things about because just like there's so much about Winter
there's so much.
and like all these characters are just like so many things. But like again, like Ironwood, I think is the biggest like
Yeah.
crux of a lot of them because it's like I do think that he was written really like I was saying. I have a weird arc with Ironwood of like I went to like really not liking him in volume 3 and volume 3 until volume 7.
Yeah.
I would say because like it's like I didn't like the choices he was making. I like not so much I thought he was evil, but just I didn't like his character. And I
Yeah,
didn't
and that's
like
okay.
the
That's
choices he was
okay.
making. Yeah, so like I
I just
didn't.
think from his mind, it makes
Mhm.
sense. You know, like from his
Yeah, like
character, it makes sense why he did what he did.
it does. It's just like I still like I respect it. I just don't like it. Is
And
the
yeah,
thing.
and that's okay.
Yeah, so just like I have that arc of like not liking him, not liking him, not liking him, and then we get to volume 7 and we see this renewed confidence in Ironwood.
Mm-hmm.
We get the fight with Watts, and
So
suddenly
good.
it's like my arc is like I didn't like him to never doubted you for a second, James, and then I always knew you were going to stab us in the back. I knew it. Just never doubted you for a second, dude. I knew it.
I know. Did you watch the Murder Bird's reaction to Gravity?
Uh,
Because he was so funny. Murderer, that's his name, right?
it's,
Arnold.
yeah, I know the channel. Like,
Yeah.
I shout out to
His
Arnold, not that he
reaction to
eats, but
Gravity was so funny because he was like after the Watts fight, he's like, "I love you to death, Ironwood," and then Ironwood's like, "I'm going to Van Mantle," and he's like, "No, I hate you."
yeah. It just again, just I think just a lot of the community thing. Just like
Fitting.
that's the song Caleb sings for that scene and so much else. And it's
Hero.
so uplifting and so
So
like
good.
yeah. It's like it gives you so much faith and confidence in
I
Ironwood. It's
know.
like let's go,
I know.
the
It's so
Iron
good.
Daddy.
It's so good. Yeah.
It's just we all love that scene,
God.
but
But
then
yeah, but anyway, like with volume 7, like again, I didn't really care about him either. I
yeah,
forgot he existed until volume 7. All of like what I'm saying now is based off of like looking back after.
and given again, this made him her favorite character just from the last couple of volumes, not anything before. Yeah,
Care about any of it before. Like, I get what you were saying
yeah,
about it before. Like,
yeah. Just all that build up into now.
right. And then volume 7 came and he was just like the best character. Like, I'm sorry, he was so good. And I think they accidentally did it.
But yeah,
Because there was just so much about it. It was just like it like his perspective made sense, and I don't think the writers, and I'm not really trying to be like bash them too much here. I don't think they
too much
expected
keyword.
too much, just a little bit. I think they expected people to like him so much, right? And
Yeah,
I think that's where a lot of Volume 8 came in, was they realized, oh my God, people like him, they agree with him. We gotta turn him evil
just
to
snort it.
make this character not allowed.
Yeah,
Okay, just waving my finger around.
it's conundrum. Like, and I'd say like again, like Alia and I are both screenwriters, and we both like learned a lot more of the craft.
Not like experts.
Definitely not. Absolutely not.
I think we can like we can point out when there's something we notice like doesn't work
Yeah, no,
in something.
I definitely would say so. And what I was going to say is like the biggest conundrum I think a lot of writers fall into, be it with screenwriting or any kind of writing, is that like you never know how your characters are going to be perceived when you're writing them.
Exactly.
Like you can have a character that you absolutely can't stand, and
But
you're
then
just
they're
like,
a fan favorite.
exactly. And then it just like you are in this weird position of like, well, I didn't like how this character turned out personally. Like they don't add much to my story. But then you're in the interesting position of like, do I keep feeding into what the fans want, or do I keep the integrity of what my story is and go with what I want to do? Which,
Right, and I think that's an interesting point because we don't know what the writers were thinking.
yeah,
Like, I don't know if
exactly.
they mapped out volume 7 and 8 at the same time.
I mean, they imply that they do in like there's a book that they released not that long ago, like a Ruby Encyclopedia, which is like a gold mine worth of
Mm.
like information and stuff of like what went into the storytelling of Ruby. But my problem with that is like they do say like there is a lot of stuff they do have mapped out all the way up until the end of the whatever end we may be expecting for Ruby. I don't know where that's going to be.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a bit.
Yep, yep, yep. But but even then, it's just like I don't know where they were planning or what they were planning with it, but I don't think that they really have handled Ironwood. Or there's a few characters I feel like they had a strong narrative in mind for them at
Yeah.
first, but then they chose to backtrack on them. And I think like Adam, I was gonna say, is my primary example
Oh
of
yeah,
that.
a
Of like
hundred percent.
Adam, like I was very annoyed by this when my friend told me the story behind the scene volume 3 when Adam one shots Yang and takes Blake out so easily. The scene we get in volume 6, that like really close fight scene,
Hmm.
that was supposed to be in volume 3.
And
That
that's why
was
it looks so good because Monty did it.
exactly that.
Yeah.
As if I don't like we love you, Monty. As I don't necessarily want to say that like now that Monty's gone, that like none of this is going to
But
occur.
yeah, I think like
No, I know. I
yeah.
don't want to imply that by saying what I want to
Oh
do,
yeah,
but like
no,
yeah.
just the sorry,
Oh, no,
you were
you're fine.
saying.
You're fine. Just I'd seen the fact that it was so uneven that first time around. It made every other encounter that happened afterward feel rushed, undeserved. It's just like the fact that Blake took Adam down with like one punch in Volume 5 was like, where did like Blake didn't
Oh
do
yeah,
any training or anything over the like she's not
yeah,
like
she didn't earn it.
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's just like I want Blake like I wanted Blake to feel like she earned that victory because of how much of a strain Adam's been on her entire life since leaving the White Fang.
Definitely.
So it was just like the whole build up of that, and like I felt Adam was just such a strong character to speak to like the issue of like racism and that kind of thing, which
Oh
I
yeah.
think they meant to tell that story, and
And
like
they did not do it well,
no,
I'm
not at
sorry.
all, not at all. But like I feel like the reason behind that was like now that you have Salem, it's like where do you fit Adam into the grand scheme
Right.
of that? Which like I understand that narratively, but at the same time, I feel like they still could have like fleshed out so much of his character better.
Yeah, and I think this is another case of accidental write-in, and I don't really mean this in a bad way because
Oh,
it's
you
really
know.
easy in a
Mhm.
fantasy story to write like, a fantasy thing, but it has like a real world implication. And I feel like the white thing and like the faunus being like equated to racism was not like really intentional, but it definitely came across like that. And so looking at it through like, that real world lens is really easy to be like, oh, this was really butchered because it was butchered when you look at it from, the racism
In that
angle,
perspective, yeah.
especially with Adam, because he literally has like the Schnee name branded on his face. He's blind in one eye, and they're like,
Yeah.
he's evil. He's the bad guy, which he did very evil things.
Yeah,
He
extremely,
did,
yeah.
but he's a victim, right?
He
And
is, yeah.
it's just I wish they did more with that.
Like they play more into that kind of
Right.
aspect, which again, like, that's the thing I give like so much of the fan fiction writers so much credit for, and that they do play so much more into that, which I feel like they meant to somewhere in there, but then it was just like, well, we have limited screen time, we can't get to this,
Yeah,
so
and I remember they said in one of the commentaries or like off screen, they're like, "Oh, we're all white. We can't write a racism subplot, so we're not going to." That's that's like the worst excuse ever.
I'm sorry.
Did
That
you
is.
hear that? I
Yeah,
think I told you that
you did
before.
tell me that before.
Yeah.
Like, I still am like surprised by it, and it's like I understand not being able to tell a story because you don't have the perspective and
Right, and
to
I
tell it.
understand being like wary about telling that type of
Yeah,
story,
because you want
but
to do it justice.
yeah,
You
but
want.
you can't just like look the other way, you
You
know?
can't just be like, okay, yeah, nope, oh, like nope.
Oh, that story's over.
Yeah, just like it. I don't want to like say like I have stories I've written before. Where it's like I'm dealing with issues which I have no experience with
Hmm.
whatsoever, and it's like I'm always so worried about like how it's going to come across to people who have experienced it. What you
Yeah,
do is not stop writing; it's you start finding people who have to talk to them, get
exactly.
the perspective, learn.
Exactly.
Writers need to learn.
Exactly. You like be respectful, you do your research and you just you try and I think that's really great you said that because I I get why they would be afraid to
Yeah,
write it, but that doesn't mean you just don't write
yeah,
it.
'cause, like it's I understand being afraid of messing it up or like trying to like tell a story that appeals to that or not necessarily appeals, but like yeah, speaks to the greater issue that they're trying to highlight with that.
Hmm.
But at the same time, you don't just drop it.
Right, and like and again, I love Volume 7, but I think one of my biggest issues with it is they didn't really do a lot with the faunus because I remember Atlas is one of the kingdoms that has the most faunus discrimination, and we did not see that.
At all. No,
No. Like there was just a few passing thoughts where Morrow, which is like he's a faunus and he's on the Aesops, he's like, I didn't come here to solve like societal systemic issues. We gotta do our mission.
like, I mean, we got none of the kind of development we should have.
Especially like they literally went in the mines where the explosion happened where Lila's
Ilya.
Ilya
Ilya, yeah, sure.
Ilya's parents died. And Weiss and Blake were both there and they barely said anything.
Yeah, no
Like
one.
all game was like, oh, I know this place. There was an explosion here, and Weiss was like, I remember how angry my dad was when this explosion happened. I'm like,
People,
like there's a big issue at stake. I feel like I love Weiss, I really do, but I feel like whenever they do the White Flame plot, it's normally focused on how not racist she is anymore. You know, like it's about how her arc was like, I'm not racist. I'm better than my dad. I'm sorry for all we've done, and they're like, it's okay, Weiss, and that's it. You solved racism.
Yeah, congratulations.
Victim.
I appreciate like so much of Weiss of like stepping away from that legacy of
And
her
I love
character.
her
Yeah,
arc. I
no, that
do.
arc is amazing. Yeah,
I do. It shouldn't overshadow Blake's arc and like the Faunus, which it does.
yeah, no, it absolutely. Again, like as someone who loves Blake so much as a character, it
Hmm.
does. But again, like there's also like the aspect of like how were they going to write that? Then is the question.
I don't know because
Mhm.
again, like I agree that like Adam needed to go because he did very bad things that couldn't be forgiven. Just like I agree, Ironwood had to go in Volume 8 because he was going to bomb people.
Yeah, of course.
Like I'm not defending Volume 8 Ironwood at all, by the way.
Yeah, no, 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 no. We have a lot of thoughts
Oh
on
yeah,
that, which
we'll
we'll get
get
to.
to that.
Yeah,
We're gonna get to
it
that.
snowballs.
Yeah, but I think they should have just like I don't know. I don't know how I would have rewrote it. I just would have done like better.
Just, just,
I'm not saying I can write better, but I'm also not saying I can't
just,
write.
yeah. Just 'cause, like, we want to like see like better sort, but it's also the same. But like we acknowledge like we don't know how we would have done it like better than
Yeah, and
at
like
the same.
I bet in like a writer's room, I don't think these writers have bad intentions at all. I think they're genuinely trying their best. It's just it's like they need to like take a step back and really listen to like some like valid criticism and maybe get some new writers on board or like rethink what they're doing. But I don't think there's any bad intent at all. I think they just don't like they just make mistakes.
It's like they said like, they just didn't know how to handle a story like that, and
Right.
like in that case, get people who can or talk to people
Exactly.
who can.
Exactly. Because it's not that hard.
It's
It's not.
I mean, listen, I as an introvert who has a lot of trouble going out to talk to people outside my
Hmm.
own door, I understand how hard it is to find people to talk to, especially about like actual
In a
issues. But
writer's room, if
yeah,
you're a paid writer of a company,
yeah.
that's part of your job. So get out that door.
It's just, I mean, you know.
Okay, all right. Where do we leave off?
Um, let me see. Where did we go? I mean, I started talking about like the Adam plotline, how I thought that character, like we were saying, like, Adam and Ironwood, like both were like those characters, like they had so much potential to be so much more as
Mhm.
characters, but then like they just kind of, I don't want to say like whiffed, but like they,
That's true.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm trying to find a better word than
Yeah.
whiffed, but at the same time, 'cause just like with Ironwood, like especially like what we were saying, like in Volume 7, there's a lot of that hope we got in Ironwood as a character that we started building
Yeah,
the
he
traits of him.
was so good in Volume 7. He stole the show in Volume 7. Like,
Absolutely, and I think like we were saying, like he had the potential to also do it in Volume 8,
mm,
but then they
mm,
just kind of backtracked on
yeah.
that and changed that
I will
hard.
I will say like the part I agree with everything Ironwood did until he shot Oscar because that's obviously like what the heck did
Really, yeah.
I think it was good writing. I really liked it. I don't agree with him doing it, but I think it made sense.
For once, this is not against the writers; this is just against the character himself.
Exactly. But I like that because again like shooting someone is wrong. You can hear it from me here folks.
Just the fact that we've gotten to the situation where it's just that's what we have to address here. It's just like that is wrong.
Let's make a public statement real quick.
Yeah.
Killing people is bad. But anyway, bleh. I I don't get why people say in Volume 7 Ironwood needed to learn to trust people because that's actually what Ruby needed to do. That was her arc. She needed to learn to trust people because at the start of Volume 7 I totally I like that she lied to Ironwood. I really like that plot line. I don't like the resolution to it.
Put them in Ozpin's shoes, which is the
Exactly.
big thing. I think that's what they wanted us to do. It's like
Exactly.
they were like, well, you accuse Ozpin of lying.
And then you do the same thing.
Exactly. Like you kept that secret about Salem for the same reason Oz kept that from
Right.
you
And
guys.
they were so mad that Oz lied And I wish they realized in Volume 7 or Volume 8, oh my god, we did the same thing he did. And I wish it made them realize maybe Oz wasn't as bad as we, thought he was, because now we're in his position and we understand the burden of knowing about Salem and like knowing the truth. Because Ironwood, he didn't know Salem can't be killed. He didn't know what she wanted to do with the relics, but he knew she existed, and he told the Aesops, Winter, and Penny about her.
He trusted people
Right,
to tell them that.
exactly. He
Yeah.
trusted them. He trusted Team RWBY, Team Juniper, Oscar, and Crow, like the minute they came into his office, and he was like, here's my entire plan. I want to like build Amity as a global communications tower and tell the whole world about Salem, and then we're going to help everybody. And like he told them, he trusted them immediately, right?
Right.
He didn't keep anything from them. And,
Right.
and people are like, oh my god, he was paranoid. He was like scared. Which like he was, but he
Mhm.
trusted people.
I'll play the devil's advocate on
Yeah.
this one and just say like the only person who I feel like he could have maybe afforded to trust a little bit more if they gave her more development was Robin. Like they could.
I love Robin. I know people don't like her.
I
I
know
really like her.
I enjoyed Robin's character a lot.
And
I
she
feel
has
like
Christina V's
oh really?
voice. Like I love her so much.
I
I
listen.
think I pronounced her name right.
I listen. I wouldn't know exactly. I forget it. Like
She's
I
Marinette from Miraculous Ladybug, but you don't watch Miraculous.
I haven't yet. It's on my
Don't watch
list
it. Do not
somewhere.
watch it.
It's on my
Don't.
list somewhere. I have to at one
Save
point.
yourself the pain. Similar to Ruby, it goes downhill so fast.
Listen, that I'm still on the sinking ship of Ruby as it is, so I'm going to.
Hop onto another sinking ship. Join
Exactly.
the club.
Yeah.
What
But
was your devil's advocate? They should
I,
have trusted Robin.
yeah, because like, I feel like Robin had so much potential to be a lot more of a character in a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the different things, and I feel like she was the one person that Ironwood didn't trust that he should have because
Well,
of the fact, yeah,
wait, sorry, because of the fact what?
because of the fact that like I feel like if they were working together a lot more closely, it would have changed so many different things. I understand narratively why he
Yeah.
didn't, but at the same time, like I feel like if you want to play the argument of like he should have been more trusting, that's the one person he should have been
Right,
more
and
trusting
and
with.
and my counterpoint to that is that after Beacon, someone hacked his ships. He didn't know what was alive, so he knew there was someone on the inside. He didn't know who he can trust, but he knew he could trust the small group of people. Which you can make the argument, oh, like they're in his like military, so he's like, there's like a power dynamic, so of course he trusted them. Right? You
Yeah,
can make that argument. But again, I don't think there was any like bad intent here, right? He didn't know who he could trust, but he trusted some people, right?
right.
And like he should have trusted Robin, but then he did in at the end of the volume, right?
I mean, more so he was forced to because I mean the whole thing there was like Blake and Yang told Robin about all of this
Which I
behind. Yeah,
really like. I know people don't like that.
I liked it too. I mean, I
Yeah,
thought that was a great like moment for that.
it was, and I'll talk about that in a minute. What were you saying?
Again, more so like again, Ironwood's reaction to that. I'm not entirely sure how I felt about. Like, I'm not against what they
Yeah,
did. Telling the people the truth about it. It's what I feel like they should
I
have
think
done in the first place. But
right. One of Ironwood's biggest flaw was definitely Mantle, which is an argument people make why they don't like him in Volume 7, is they
mhm.
say, like, he stole their supplies, he didn't care about them, he let them, like, freeze, and they were poor, and you know what? That is a flaw.
Yeah,
I will
absolutely.
definitely
Yeah.
admit. But he made Team RWBY huntsmen specifically so they could help in Mantle. Like if you rewatch episode 4 of volume 7, he's like he makes them huntsmen and then they go on missions in Mantle to help Mantle. He had
Specifically.
he had Penny as the protector of Mantle.
Yeah.
He right?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
he was helping them. He should have done more, and that's where Robin comes in. But Robin also, she doesn't know about Salem, so she thinks Ironwood is just like an evil dictator who doesn't care about Mantle. But in reality, he was too busy to focus on his plan to save the world that he overlooked Mantle. Right?
You're right. It's mostly some fun. Finding it funny. It's like Robin was representative of the audience at that point and how we felt, which I
No,
just find
she
kind of
literally,
funny.
yeah, no, she is. She kind of is. But I liked their dynamic of how they both were so extreme, right? Like
Right.
she had every right to want to help Mantle, but she didn't know about Salem.
Right.
Ironwood's whole thing is that he sees the bigger picture and he overlooked Mantle not like with a malintent, but because he thought saving the world was more important than helping a city.
Right.
Which a city is a lot of people, but if you look at the grand
And
scheme of like
calculus.
the
Yeah.
whole world, then like it makes sense, and that's why I really like how Blake and gang, they go behind Ironwood's back to tell Robin Ironwood's plan. they do it to help Ironwood. They are on Ironwood's side.
They are, and
Yeah.
that's why I don't like Ironwood's reaction to that. I'm just like, how did she find out? Like that.
Right. His reaction is definitely, overblown, but I
Because that's
I
just the
think
start of the domino effect at
right,
that
that's
point.
the start of the downfall. I don't know, because I really like when Ironwood and Robin come together and they deliver that speech to Mantle. I really like that point. I really do, because they both had their flaws and then they realize we have to be working together, which they both had a right not to trust each other, but they have to realize we can trust each other.
Right.
And I think it's valid for them not to trust each other, because they both could have been working for the bad guy and then they realize they're not and they're like, okay, we can trust each other. Like
Right.
it's valid that he wouldn't trust her.
Which again, like I totally understand that, but it's also I'm realizing now how did Robin get in the room to do that whole scene in the first place? I'm
I
realizing
think Shock invited her.
why exactly like the job's
No,
just like flexing.
literally, I
Like,
think he just wanted chaos, and then it turned into him getting arrested.
it's just like the chaos coming, and
Games began. They're like, "You're."
never mind.
He's like, "I don't have the upper hand anymore." But I think the Ironwood's reaction was in Gravity, which I love everything about that episode.
Oh yeah,
I think that it just showcases his flaw, how he's, prone to overreact. But he did just learn that they lied to him for months about Salem being alive. And he also just found the chess piece in his office. So he
right.
was pushed to his limit at that point. So I think he had a right to snap at them. And I think he should
Yeah,
have listened to them, say, like, we were on your side, we were doing it to help. And because Blake and Yang told Robin about Amity, that's how she was able to trust Ironwood. So Blake and Yang did a good thing
yeah, they did.
going behind Ironwood's back, but he was too caught up in the fact that they went behind his back to
Yeah.
realize the good thing they did.
Which I guess it raises like the other focal point I think of like most of the arguments against Ironwood specifically. It's like I understand like stress and everything else
Hmm.
getting to your head at that point and altering your decisions. It's something I think that's very relatable in every human, and I'm not
Hmm.
surprised that a general of all things feels that
Oh,
as well.
100%.
It's something that I feel like he should have maybe had like a slightly better handle of, but I totally understand his reaction to that. And that made sense, and they could have run with that reaction.
Right, yeah, like he didn't turn evil in that moment. He became like really scared, which like I would too.
Yeah, I
If I learned that Salem can't be killed, then what are you going to do? That no one knows how to beat her.
Yeah, like you're just up against an unstoppable force
Right.
that's at your doorstep
And,
threatening
and
to
and
kill you.
his whole plan is to tell the world about her, and he just learned she can't be killed. So what is he supposed to do? His whole plan is like done. He can't do anything now.
And on top of that, like, I mean, did they tell everyone that Salem can't be killed? I
No,
forget. Because, like, I feel like that would have, again, incited panic, which he
exactly.
didn't want to do, which is a good thing.
Exactly. He didn't want the panic, and that's why his whole plan was to build a tower, like reestablish global communications, tell them about Salem, and then he said he was going to send out aid, but he needed to buy the time so they could plan how to like handle the panic.
Again,
So he had
yeah,
good intentions.
he did, absolutely. But,
Right.
like, the thing that counters that now specifically
Mhm.
is the implementation of his semblance, which I think is like
Mhm.
the biggest point of like
Right.
because like up until the point where we reveal that oh yeah he has a semblance that he's not just like because
Which
obviously
wasn't revealed in the show, by the way.
yeah like honestly I would have been absolutely fine with him being the quirkless general that makes him so much cooler
Mhm.
that like
I think so too.
of all these characters in the world who have all these amazing abilities, or maybe not always amazing abilities, but like all these abilities that let them do so many different things, and then you just have a general and such a powerful general who can go up against other powerful
Right,
opponents
but he doesn't have
without
a
a
power.
quirk. Yeah,
That would be so good.
that would have been. But then instead they gave him understandably an Achilles heel. Like I have a rule when it comes to any character that I ever make, which is the stronger you make that character, the
Mhm.
greater the weakness you have to make
But
to
the
them
problem was
is.
that he already had a weakness. It was his paranoia, it was his fear, it was his like overconfidence, right?
Right.
But then they give him a semblance that's like, oh, we don't even know what it is. We don't even have a clear
Yeah,
definition of it.
we don't. It's just like basically like okay, bad decision, double down on bad decision. That's essentially
It's like
the quirk and
it's
what
like
the semblance of
it's
it
like
does.
tunnel vision. It's called Metal, and they revealed it in like a Q&A panel, like a Zoom panel, and they said it makes him, once he makes a decision, he'll harden in on that decision and have tunnel vision, which it doesn't make sense, because like what are the rules to it? Like is it passive like Crow semblance? Like can he not control when it activates? And if he can't control when it activates, then he is a victim to his semblance, just like Crow.
Yeah,
But they made it into a reason why he turned evil.
Right, which again, like it changes the narrative that you're trying to tell with it, because it's
Yeah.
either you're not giving us enough information to work with, or you're giving a narrative of someone with a genuine. I don't want to say again. I don't want to call it an issue or anything like that. But it's like
Hmm.
if he can control it, it paints a very strong picture
Well,
of
I
it.
don't think
If
he can because they said in the panel it's passive.
see, that's the other problem though. It's because
Yeah.
either he can control it and it's bad, or he can't control it, and you're building this picture of like someone with this kind of
Like handicap.
with this kind of handicap is an evil person. That's the narrative that they
Thank
were
you
trying
for
to paint.
saying that
Yeah,
because that's a problem that really bothers me with the show, and I don't think this was intentional
yeah.
at all
I don't either.
with the writing, but they painted a really bad narrative of you're like disabilities equals evil, which I don't think they meant at
Yeah,
all.
I don't think they did. They did it better, I think, with Crow and like a
Oh,
lot of the other
100%.
characters. Yeah.
Because no one's going to sit here and tell me Crow is evil for his semblance. Nobody.
No, I
Nobody.
mean,
Because he's not.
the man went away from the family that he very clearly loved species. That he like, I've seen so many different things now, like why Crow drinks, and I think a lot of people have pointed to it being
Mhm.
like it's because of how bad he feels about what happened with Summer, that he wasn't able to
Yeah,
protect
no,
her.
and he's just so depressed and his semblance just amplifies that and it's really sad.
It is, and as you
Yeah,
said, no one's going to tell us that Crow is the bad guy because he's
right.
not. Like, we're not blaming him for what happened to Clover. We're not blaming him
No,
for what happened to any of these people.
it's
Just
his
as,
semblance. He doesn't control it. It's passive. And that's the key word is it's passive. So it's just like it's always there. It will activate like without his he doesn't activate it. It's not his fault.
right, and again, like just the corner that they painted themselves into with Ironwood here
But
is either that
right.
he can control it and that he's choosing to do everything that he's doing, or he can't control it and that he's suddenly this like. And the thing is,
Yeah.
I don't think they even meant to paint him in that corner.
Exactly, exactly. That's the problem with the semblance. It would have been better if they just hadn't like even made it because it doesn't add anything to the story if you don't know about it because it wasn't revealed in the story. It was revealed off screen.
I
So
was
you
thinking it
can
makes it
even
worse, if
right,
anything.
exactly. You can even argue it's not canon. But I think even building off the semblance, the biggest offender to me was what they did to Ironwood was in the volume 7 commentary. I don't listen to the commentaries. They make everything 10 times worse.
The
I'm sorry. They're
juice.
literally so have you listened to them?
I don't think I have, just because again I haven't had any time to like
Yeah,
consume any other like media.
which is fair. Which is fair. I don't know why you would make time to
Oh,
watch them.
like Lee Jeez, jeez, I say.
They said, remember in Gravity when Ironwood like Watts trapped his arm in the hard light
Yeah, and he was
and
like struggling to.
he pulled his arm out
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and Ironwood has like a metal leg and a metal arm and then he just gave up his like only like real arm left to get out and stop Watts, right?
Oh,
And
was I thought his
mm,
other arm was still.
mm, no,
Also, now both arms. Okay,
so he has a metal leg and he gave up his arm to stop Watts because and I think that's like one of the most heroic moments in the show ever. Like I would not pull my arm out and like it like peeled his skin off and then he had to get it cut off.
which also surprised me. Like I understood like he was like very badly injured on that arm. I didn't think he was gonna
Yeah.
have to get the whole like arm replaced
Yeah.
because of that.
Right,
Yeah.
but the problem with that is I think that moment was like so cool and like Hero was playing in the
Yeah,
background. It's
no,
like
it was.
you're a
Yeah.
hero, you stopped Watts, you sacrificed your arm. But
Again,
then sorry, what?
it made the Ironwood hater in me proud of that character.
It
So
was such a good moment. But then if you listen to the commentary, they say, so when Ironwood pulls his arm out, this is him sacrificing his humanity. And it's not.
I mean,
It's not.
it's not, but like at the same time, like you could also make the argument of like that's part of like it's what he said before. He's willing to sacrifice anything to
Okay,
stop them, like even if it
exactly.
means his humanity.
Exactly, but that's the problem with it though, is it goes into the disabilities like trope. Is they're implying like, if you're more machine, then you're not human, which I don't think they meant to do, but they were saying by you like losing your arm to stop a bad guy, to save the world, you are losing your humanity. And I don't like the allegory of like machines, like prosthetics equals not human. Because
Right.
that's the whole arc with Penny, is that she's a robot, but she's a human,
I was gonna
right?
say, like, even with Ironwood specifically, like, if you read the lyrics to Hero, and I'm
Mm.
going to sing this A because it's a great song to beat just because I love doing it. It's like there's a lyric in the song of like, what is it? What was it? What was it? Hold on,
I
well,
would die.
like the second to last verse of it. I'm trying to remember
I'm
how it
here
would
to
go.
protect you. Oh, what if it's
The
true if they
it,
say that I
I
don't
have
have
a
a
heart
heart
that I'm more
anymore,
a
a
machine
machine
than
than
a
a
man.
man?
Yeah, there we go.
Would that change? Would it matter at all?
There it is, though.
Okay,
The key word,
yes,
like,
yes,
would
yes,
that
yes, yes,
change?
yes,
What would
yes.
it matter at
But
all?
but
Yeah,
but the whole thing is that he's willing to sacrifice himself, not other people, and that's what they messed up in Volume 8. Is he
right.
was willing to sacrifice other people to save himself, but in Volume 7 he was willing to sacrifice himself to save the world, and they flipped it in
Yeah,
Volume 8.
they
And
did,
that's the
absolutely. Yeah,
problem. Is because the core of his character was like, I don't care what happens to me. I don't care about my reputation. Like, his reputation was gone. Everyone hated him. Atlas hated him. The world hated him because they blamed him for Beacon. Robin hated him. He was like, he was in a box, but he kept fighting, right? And it's
right.
like, I don't care what happens to me. And that's what it means by sacrifice. And then
Yeah.
they twisted it to mean, oh, I don't care who dies as long as I get what I want, which
Which,
that's not who he is. That's not who he
yeah,
was.
no, not at all. And it's
Right.
like, and again, like, it brings it back to, like, I think one of the other pivotal points, particularly with volume, like, 8.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at, like, the differences between Ruby and Ironwood and what they
Mm.
wanted to do, what they wanted out of
Oh
this.
yes. Oh
Yeah,
yes. 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 Yes.
this
Yes.
is this is what everyone came here
Oh yes.
for.
Yes. 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 You
I,
need to put in like timestamps.
oh
Do you
yeah,
know how
no,
to do timestamps?
I do on YouTube. I have to, like, I've never done it for any of my stuff before, so
Okay.
I'll have to do
Okay.
that. But,
I
like,
can help you if you need it.
I'd appreciate that immensely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I got you.
Yeah, but we're saying, like, for that scene though, when Ironwood and Ruby are
In
both,
gravity,
yeah,
right? I love it's
it
so
was,
good. It's
in
so good.
Gravity. It's that scene where Ironwood does snap at everyone, being like, like, why, that I can't trust you guys like I was able to before. When they have the differences between, like, one wanted to save Mantle, the other one wanted to save everyone they could.
Mm-hmm.
They both kind of want the same
They
thing there,
do.
though.
They do. And I don't think one of them is right. I don't think one of them is wrong. I think they both are right. And the
Right.
show painted it as only Ruby was right. That there's only one answer, which it's the trolley problem. Do you know the trolley problem?
Yeah, like, is it right to save the three people or spare the one, or kill the
Exactly.
one person to save the
It's
three?
that.
Yeah,
It's that because in Gravity, what Team Ruby wanted, okay, first of all, Salem, she just like came out of the suitcase. She's like, I'm on my way. I just dismantled your security system. I'm coming.
yeah,
And then she disappeared and she's like, bye.
yeah.
And so they have like they don't know when she's going to get there, right?
Just that she's
She's on
coming.
her way.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
That's all they know. They don't have a time limit. She could be there in a minute, right? She could be there in days, but they don't know. So they have to act fast. They have no time to form a plan
Yep.
because she's literally at their door, right?
Right. Yep. Yep.
So there's no time, and so what Ironwood wanted to do was he wanted to raise Atlas. We don't know if that would have worked or not, right? It
Yeah.
was
That's
it was it was a plan, whatever. He wanted to raise Atlas because it had two relics on it, and it had a maiden on it, and it had the majority of his population on it, and they already evacuated some of Mantle to Atlas.
right. And I would say that's the key part of this, though, is that he didn't say I want to save Atlas. It's I want to save as many people
Thank
as I
you,
could.
because literally, oh my god, on online, I've seen so many people who are like, he just cares about the rich people. He just
No.
wanted to let the poor people die. Ruby is a champion for the poor people.
No. It's just like he was moving people up there. He wanted to save
He was
everyone.
evacuating, and he stopped the evacuation because Salem was coming. They had no time. If he didn't do anything, because at the end of Volume 7, Salem literally came. Like that was the last shot. She was
Right.
there.
Yeah.
So he had no time to waste, which I hate to say, and he couldn't save everyone. And
Yeah.
I like that message of like no matter like in war you cannot save everyone.
Yeah. You just have to save whoever you can. It's all
Exactly.
you can do in the end. And if you fixate on otherwise, you're gonna lose everything.
Exactly. And that's why I really like Ruby, how she was so optimistic and she's like, we have to try to save everyone. And she wanted to risk it, which is, I think, a big theme in Volume 8 is risk,
It is
right?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. And she wanted to take that risk to save everyone, but it would risk losing everyone, right?
Yep.
Because if they like spent time trying to evacuate Mantle onto Atlas, they could risk Salem coming and killing everyone, like taking both the relics and being a step closer to destroying the world. Because the key point here is, I think, the relics, which I think most people forget, is that if Salem gets all four of them, she's gonna wipe out the world.
Yeah. It's Dunzo gone.
Right, right. It's
Yeah.
like literally mass extinction. And in Ironwood's mind, it was better to save those two relics to prevent her from killing everyone than, he was willing to, like, he didn't want to let Mantle die, he had to. And I think that's what people forget.
That is the key part of it. It's like he didn't want to do that. It's not some malicious thing of like I'm doing this just to save the relic. It's I'm doing this to save as many people as I can.
Because I have to, because I have no time.
Yeah.
Right? Like he literally had no choice. And Ruby she didn't understand that, which I don't blame her because
Yeah, like she's never experienced them.
because
She has no
he's
reason to.
because Ironwood he lost three of his limbs. He's been in battle like this whole time. He's been in this fight this whole time. He understands war. Ruby doesn't. And I think the biggest potential, which this is why I really liked Volume 7, is what they set up and why I was so disappointed with Volume 8, is like they set up an opportunity for Ruby to learn something where she could
Right.
learn what it really means to be like, in a war, to be like, a hero, is that you can't win, you can't get everything you want, you can't save
I
everybody.
was saying, imagine the main character actually learning a lesson.
An adult is right
Yeah.
and a 16-year-old girl doesn't know
Yeah.
everything? What?
Crazy, right?
But
Yeah.
then the show they spun it in volume 8 and they're like Team Ruby's right because they want to save everyone. Ironwood is evil because he wants to run away and he doesn't want to fight.
Which again, like, it's the and I'm sorry I keep drawing back to a other show that debatably may or may not be like writing might be on a different level, but like with like we're saying that Mr. Miyagi never wanted to fight. He avoided
Mhm.
fights when he had to. Ironwood is avoiding a fight he doesn't need to have. Like when you're in
Right.
a fight like this, you don't have the luxury of wasting resources that you can't make back.
Exactly, exactly. And at this point, they didn't have the rules of the staff yet, so we can't even argue, oh, well, he could have used the staff and he could have made blueprints and sent everyone
Right.
through portals to Bakuo. We didn't have that option yet. There
we
was no
as
option.
we as viewers had no idea that was an option. But like we just saw these two characters going at it with each other
Exactly.
with a very similar thing that they want,
they
but just
both
different
they
views of what
both
they get.
want to stop Salem. They both want to save everybody, but Ironwood was more realistic. Ruby was like idealistic, right? And again, neither of them were wrong. I'm personally like on Ironwood's side because I think like the bigger picture in that moment was just so much more important. But of course, like, they would have to leave Mantle to die. But again, Salem, she wasn't even targeting Mantle. She was making a beeline right to Atlas.
Right.
So like, and again, like, I'm
Yeah.
not saying like let Mantle die,
Yeah,
you don't
no.
deserve to live. That's not what I'm saying. And
No, not at all.
that's not
No.
what Ironwood was saying either.
Right. It's also like you can't make the assumption like, oh yeah, Salem's just gonna beeline right to Mantle to Atlas and ignore
Mm.
Mantle altogether. She's gonna scorch the earth as much
Yeah,
as possible.
yeah, no, like if they floated away and she couldn't get to them, she would have probably demolished Mantle.
Yeah, like if
Right.
not in retaliation, then just out of because that's what she does.
Exactly, exactly. But at that point, the main issue was just making sure the relics were safe,
Right. Yeah.
and there was like literally nothing else they could do.
Yeah, not a
So
not a thing they could have done to stop
right,
it.
the only reason in volume 8 that they were able to come up with their plan with the staff was because Salem was defeated and they had time. Like time is the key here,
Right,
right? Because at the
yeah.
end of volume 7 there was no time, and then in volume 8 the writers had to give them time for them to make a plan because that was the only way they could have had a plan is if they had time.
Yeah, legitimately it is. They can't plan this kind of thing under pressure the way they
No,
were.
no, you couldn't. No.
And then it just like it comes down again to like the main like crux of everything for them. They both want the same thing.
Exactly, but the narrative was so insistent on like painting it as a black and white issue when like what I wanted for volume 8 was for Ruby and Ironwood to realize they both had a point and they could work together to beat Salem because like it was so obvious they were feeding into Salem's plan to divide them and then they didn't do anything about it and like that would have been such a good message.
It would,
This
yeah.
okay, my fan fiction's almost done,
Listen,
but
yeah.
I again, I'm not saying I know better.
Absolutely,
But
neither one of us are.
yeah.
But at the same time, it's like we had Ruby exposed to the fact that she can't save everyone. That she realized eventually, you're right. We're not going to be able to save everyone. Like it's worth it to take that risk, but also I realize that we can't save
Right, and
everyone.
it's not worth it to take that risk if the risk is the end of the world.
Exactly.
I
And
think they
just
just they just created this dilemma that just it just it was really good writing. I think
it
it was
was. It
great.
was beautiful
Like
writing
they
up to
created
that
this like
point.
this problem where like people had sides and people were like who's right, who's wrong. But then instead in like the next volume they didn't go with it. They didn't like play with it. They didn't give Ruby any development except I'm right. You're wrong.
It's just
So
like
you're evil.
they could have tackled exactly what Alia and I are trying to
Hmm.
tackle with this of like there is a gray area despite disagreements. And Ruby and Ironwood absolutely could have at one point been like, okay, you know what? I'm seeing that maybe I'm going about this the wrong way. Can
Yeah.
we like we
Because
both
like
want the same
they were
thing.
like getting along fine until like the threat of Salem and like Cinder's chess piece because that's the same symbol at the Fall Beacon which she broadcasted the Black Queen
Right,
everywhere
yeah.
and so when Ironwood saw that he's like oh there's no time left she's here right?
Right.
Because he was like, despite literally, he's like, despite everything I did, she got in, just like Beacon. So
Yeah,
he was preparing for another fall Beacon. He was trying to prevent it. He was
yeah.
trying to prevent another fall Beacon.
And again, he was scared,
Oh
understandably
yeah, no,
so.
100% understandably. And Ruby was scared too. Or was she? No, she wasn't. She
I
was
mean,
she was like, I'm so confident.
she also had that panic attack when Salem gave the
Oh
line of
yeah,
like the
your
"You sound
mother.
just like your mother." She
Yeah,
was
that's
wrong
right. She
too.
started like crying and
Yeah,
yeah, which like understandably. Like I'd be so scared. I'd be so scared.
yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. It's just like again, they're both going toward the exact same direction, and I feel like they could have eventually realized that. But then we get to probably our favorite point of the entire volume, where Ironwood's just like "Nah, B," and then drops the and then just blows the because like
The bomb. Are you talking about the
I mean
bomb?
the
Oh my
bomb, the sending the ships after people to speed, like this was always about mental, wasn't
so bad. I'm
it?
gonna say it right now. Volume 8 sucked on
Yeah.
every
No,
level. I don't think there was a single thing I liked about it.
again, like, one credit I give it is that it gave Ruby the chance to see she was wrong, but then they
But then
didn't
they
play
didn't.
into that. Yeah,
Exactly. Like Volume 7 had this amazing setup. Salem was right there. It was going to be like an Infinity War final battle. Every single bad guy alive was with Salem. The heroes were going to have to realize we have to come together to save humanity. It's the whole theme of the show.
right. Yeah.
It's evil. Oh, you thought Salem was going to be the big bad? You're wrong. Like you silly man.
Yeah. You think you knew our story? No.
It just baffles me because I don't think there was any grounds for Ironwood to turn evil. Because again, we talked about his whole deal was like, I'll sacrifice myself to save everyone. It wasn't I'll sacrifice everyone to save me. And that's what they did in volume 8 was he's like, whatever the cost, I'm going to protect the rich and the elite because that's all I care about now. And that was like never what he cared about.
You know, not at all.
Not at
So
all.
it's just something like, why is he suddenly on the path of like, okay, yeah, now I'm going to just save Atlas and fuck all you guys down
No,
there.
especially because in the opening of Volume 8, Salem didn't even attack. She attacked halfway through the volume, so they had the time they needed.
Yeah,
So, like, why were you not trying to
like
save
using
Mandel?
it.
Literally, why weren't you using that time
Yeah.
instead?
I mean, like again, I'll play devil's advocate
Okay.
in that and be like, in their defense, they didn't know what Salem was going to do. Like, you see Big Whale coming at you,
Right,
you
exactly.
don't know
That's
what to
that's
do.
what I'm
Yeah,
saying. They didn't have the time,
yeah,
but
like they didn't know how much because you're saying like like they we don't know when it's coming. Like even when you see it
mhm.
there, like you're right. Salem didn't attack until like halfway through.
Yes, and I will also say that Ruby's whole thing, like her whole like argument with Ironwood in Volume 7 was she's like, "Why aren't you going to fight?" And then in Volume 8, Team Ruby does not fight. They sit in a mansion and drink tea for half the volume.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Right? And like Ironwood, he's not fighting in the battle either, but his army is fighting Salem,
Right, and we
while
have
Team
clips
Ruby
of them
does
fighting.
nothing.
Yeah,
Right? Like I was just really disappointed that like this might have been a budget thing. I don't think you can blame the budget, but like
yeah,
we didn't get a fight. We didn't get a huge full scale battle of Salem and like her grim. We got like little snippets of it.
I mean, as it.
Like Team Ruby, they were sitting in their mansion watching the explosions. They're like, we should probably do something.
Yeah.
Let's drink some tea.
It's just, it was like, and yeah, like, that's the other thing of like, even if it is a budget thing, which I think if you are going to make the argument that it is budget,
Mm-hmm.
there's a few scenes I feel like we didn't need
Oh, a
in the volume.
hundred percent.
We didn't need Ultimatum. We didn't need the
Mm-mm.
fight with Winter and Ironwood at the end. Cool as
No,
that fight is, we did
no,
not
we
need
did
it.
not need it. We needed Crow versus Ironwood.
We did,
We needed
absolutely.
Crow versus Ironwood, but then they realize at the end, why are we fighting each other? We should be fighting Salem. And then they shake hands and they're buddy buddy and they go charging into battle and fight Salem.
And so that would have been, again, a much better way of handling this. And it's
Right?
just like,
Because like they weren't enemies.
they weren't.
None of them were
No.
enemies.
Like,
And like if you
mhm.
like
Like honestly, everything up until the whale exploded, I think we were like not great, but fine.
yeah, and also like Ironwood shooting Oscar, I do want to talk about for a minute because I think there was so much potential with it because we never got an explanation why he shot Oscar.
We don't.
Like
Yeah,
again, it's wrong. The action's wrong. No one's debating that.
yeah,
But like we never got the explanation why he did it. Like, did he think Oscar was Ozpin in that moment and he's like, I'm so done with you, Ozpin. You lied to me my whole life. Like, screw you. Or did he like was he just so paranoid? Like he shot him? Like, did he mean to kill him? Did he mean to just like get him out of the way? Like we don't know.
or was it just the age-old answer of because I could?
Right, exactly. Like we don't know. And again,
Exactly.
no
Yeah.
one's disputing that his action is wrong, but I wish they explain more why is my crop like this? Okay. Ah! My cross just broke, guys. It's fine. Let me just fix it while we chat here
all fun.
for a
It's just
minute.
like like again, it's just like I want to believe that the writers had intention and actual like plan for what they were trying to do with it, and it's like I don't want like I've learned over the course of my time here in Ithaca, learning about the things of script writing,
Hmm.
that nothing is done without purpose. That everything has something that it's
Right.
leading toward, even if it's not necessarily intentional.
It's
Everything
like
has.
the like Chekhov's gun. Is that what it's called?
Is that what it's
Do you
called?
know that like theory? It's like if you see a gun in Act One, it needs to go off by Act Three.
Yes,
Yeah,
one of our professors mentioned that exactly.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes, yes.
It's kind of like that.
It is kind of like that. It's just like everything has a purpose that it's driving toward, and that
Hmm.
scene, I want to believe, has a purpose
But
to
they
it.
never mention it again. Right,
Exactly, and
like
it's
Oscar fought Ironwood when Team Juniper and Winter fought him, and then like he didn't even say anything to him. They just like took him out. And they're like, okay,
yeah, which like I feel like you could make the argument like maybe that scene was there just to bring Ozpin back. That was the first time we saw Ozpin again the entire volume,
right,
right?
but
Like it reactivated
like but we don't
Oz,
know if Oz was hiding and he was choosing not to resurface, or if he like was locked away. We don't know that.
which also dick move on Ozpin's part
No,
for
no,
not.
and then I thought they said he was there all along. He was just hiding.
I think they did say that. Like
Which,
Oz
if
did
he
say that.
was, that is the worst writing choice I've ever heard in my life. Because all of Volume 7, Ironwood was like, I wish Oz was here. What would Oz do in this moment? He wanted Oz's help. Like, they had their differences, but he's like, huh, man, where's Ozpin? And if Ozpin was, like, listening inside Oscar that whole time, but he didn't say anything,
I mean, it's like
that would be awful.
but I mean, like, where else could he have gone? Is the problem?
Right.
It's just like it's not like as far as we understand, and it's also other things with Ruby. Of like, there's so many things where it's just like they talk about things, but they don't explain things. Of
Right,
like,
right.
and especially when we want to talk about something like reincarnate. Like I was saying, reincarnation is a whole can of worms in and of itself with
Mm.
Ruby, and especially with Ozpin, we don't know necessarily how that process works or understand beyond the fact that it's something the
We
gods.
don't know a lot about it. We really don't, and I wish they would expand more on Oz and Oscar and
Yeah,
just that whole thing.
which like I understand like fundamentally like maybe it's like okay so the two of them are like are combining into one singular spirit slowly but surely,
Yeah, yeah,
which
that's
like
what's happening.
that part makes sense, but then the whole part like I understand like okay he's a man with two souls, they keep switching, that whole makes sense, but then where did he go? Like he's still in there. It's not like he
Yeah,
can just like leave that body to go somewhere
right. Like he
else.
was there, so like, why didn't he say anything?
Like the only reason I can think is like continuing with the lesson of like you think you could do this better than I can.
Like, but that is like
That's petty.
that makes me hate Ozpin
Yeah.
because
Oh.
again, the fate of the world is at stake, and you're leaving it to a paranoid general and a child. Like, you need to come help them.
I mean, it wouldn't be the first time. Let's be real.
Literally, for real. We got mixed opinions with Ozpin. I feel like I don't know where I
Okay,
stand on him.
I I want to believe in Ozpin. I liked
Hmm.
Ozpin very much as a character.
Yeah,
I understand the secrets he kept.
I do too, and I like how Ruby did the same thing, and she was going to realize why he kept the secrets because he was also scared.
Right.
And I feel bad for him because Oz is also a victim. He didn't ask to be reincarnated.
No, he didn't.
Did they give him a choice? Did the gods give him a choice, or were they like, we're just going to reincarnate you?
Well, see, did they give him an option of reviving him? No. Did they give him an option of reincarnating him? I think yes. They did say like, okay, here's a mission we need you to
Right. And
do.
he's like, I'll do it to stop Salem.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which he didn't end up doing anyway after he got reincarnated. But
Oh my god.
that's a whole different
Oh,
argument.
it's so weird. But I don't think Oz is, bad.
Yeah, I don't
I
either.
think he just made big mistakes. And I think like a lot of the fandom they like, and I don't want to generalize. I think some people who like are just so passionate and they love the show, they don't realize that you can mess up and not be evil.
Yeah,
Like I feel like there's this vision where it's like you have to be perfect, and if you make mistakes, then you're bad.
which I think is very like it's very relatable to like the times now of like I think
Yeah.
a lot of people's like parents and that kind of thing like they give the impression of like fail, they stigmatize failure, they make it sound like
Right.
failure is like a cardinal sin that you could commit, but it's like
It's not. That's not like.
it's not at all, but it's like that's a big part of how you learn in life, but I feel like just there's so much of that mindset still in our generation of like if you make a mistake then there's no recovery from it, which some mistakes are not made to be recovered, but it doesn't mean every mistake is not meant to be recovered.
Exactly. That's so real. But I think that oh yeah, there was just so much wrong with Volume 8. And again, I say this from a place of love
Yeah, no, mhm.
because like Volume 8, it was so hyped. It had everything going for it. There was no way they could mess it up. And like
Then they did.
then they did. Right? And I'm saying this as a place of like I want the show to be better. I want it
Yeah,
to do better because I like it because I'm a fan.
yeah.
I'm not saying it because I'm an awful bigoted person. Right? Like I
Right,
think
no,
I've
not
made
at
it
all.
clear
No,
that I like this show.
yeah, no, I think we
And I'm
both
not
did.
saying
Yeah.
you think that as
No, no, no.
well.
I've said like I think we both, at least as clear as I think we possibly could, made it that we both very much love this show and have loved so much of what it's given to us both.
Exactly.
But at the same time, there, we can admit, because of how much we love it, that there are things they could do
Exactly.
better to get their story across, or at least the
Exactly.
story that they're giving us the impression of trying to tell.
Right. But I think about Volume 8, one thing that I really did not like was how they handled Emerald.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
and
no, no,
just the problem with it, I don't mind her being reformed, but I don't like how in the episode they reformed her, Weiss says trust is a risk because that just takes away the entire plot of Volume 7 because if trust is a risk, why are you going to trust Emerald, who's a bad guy, and not trust Ironwood, who's a good guy? Right?
yeah,
Like it's just there's so much double standards where it's like, "Oh, Emerald, you're the reason Yang got kicked out of the tournament and you helped cause the fall of Beacon and you helped kill
yeah,
the Fall Maiden. Oh, we forgive you.
yeah.
Ironwood, you want to save the world? Fuck you."
Pretty much.
Like, you know? You know what I mean? It's just like the values. It's like if you're not going to trust Ironwood right away, you can't trust Emerald right away.
I mean, like, again, the argument we'll make to that is like, I don't think she necessarily reformed. Like, I don't think she necessarily said like, okay, I'm going to be a good guy now. I think it's more so just like she
She
just
did actually say that,
did
word
she
for
really?
word. She said, "It's really weird being on the good guy side now."
I think I do remember her saying like, well, I mean, because the thing is, she's saying she's on the good guy's side, but I don't think she necessarily meant like to be like, oh yeah, I'm the good guy now. Because it's like what I got from Emerald is like she wasn't necessarily done with her life of like committing crimes and causing chaos and
Right.
that kind of thing. What she was done with was
Was
just
Salem.
Salem. Yeah,
But the problem for me is that they just instantly trust her and they're like, you can hear about our plan and you can be a part of our plan. It's like,
yeah.
what if she was still a double agent? Like, you just, like, you just instantly trust her.
Which
And,
honestly, I still think that might be a possibility. It's like, sorry, just like
oh, you're
I
good.
still think that is a possibility given just one thing, which I don't like. Again, I don't want to chalk this up to like they forgot or something like that, but
Mm-hmm.
like I want to just like I want to put this out there. I put this out to my friends before, and you were the one who brought this up to me, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
oh shoot, you're
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Of like, so where are Tyrion and Mercury right now,
Mm-hmm. They're in Vacuo.
and where are our team going?
Vacuo!
And it's a good thing Emerald told them about this, right? Oh wait,
Wait, oops!
yeah,
Because halfway through Volume 8, Tyrion and Mercury, instead of fighting in Atlas, they're like, peace out, we're gonna go set up in Vacuo. And Emerald, like, she's like, bye, and she sees them leaving the ship.
right.
And then she is part of Team Ruby's plan to use the Staff of Creation to evacuate everyone to Vacuo, and she doesn't bring up, by the way, Vacuo is Salem's next target, so maybe
Yeah,
we shouldn't bring everyone.
yeah. Imagine next volume, like if they are going to continue on the path of like, oh yeah, she is redeemed. She's going to be like, oops.
You know what? Team Ruby knows that Vacuo is Salem's next target because it's the only kingdom she hasn't hit yet.
You're not wrong. It's like you're right. It is the only kingdom that because like Dracula has been hit over the course of the past couple of things, not by Salem,
Right.
but they have been hit.
Also, Vacuo was supposed to be the target before Atlas, but because um I forget who found out that they were bringing the lamp to Atlas was in Volume 6. Was that Cinder? No, it wasn't Cinder. It was
Hazel wasn't.
Hazel.
Yeah,
Yes.
'cause Volume 6
Yes.
they discovered that. Also, didn't they say they were going to Vacuum originally, but then like they mentioned that Ruby had Silver Eyes, and then she's like Tyrion, forget. Oh no, that was sorry, that was for going after Spring. That's what it was. It was
Right, but like their target was Vacuo, but then they switched it because they realized they were bringing the lamp to Atlas. So
right.
basically, they followed Team Ruby to Atlas. So Atlas wasn't even supposed to be their first target. I'm not blaming Team Ruby for that. They
No,
weren't
not at all.
supposed to know that. But it's just I cannot fathom why they brought everyone to Vacuo. I can't.
I can't. Yeah, the only reason I can like kind of see it is again like you're saying it's the only kingdom that they haven't hit yet, which means that they still have the most amount of huntresses and huntsmen who can
Right. But
still
would you
fight.
bring a bunch of innocent people who are used to the cold into a desert and be like, by the way, there's going to be a war soon, so be prepared?
I just, I think, in fairness, I think if you're gonna do that to any place, I think Vacuo is the best place to do it. Like, I'm sorry to anyone who like has read any of the books and like knows about Vacuo the way that I do. That place is a terrible place to be, especially.
Exactly. So why would you bring everyone there?
That's exactly why you would bring everyone there. It's like it's a bad place as it is, and I don't want to say like, oh yeah, that excuses why you're gonna make it even worse by bringing everyone, there. But like at the same time, it's like they're used to getting to every day being a fight. And
Mm.
I feel like just like it's you have the people who are the most hardened, most battle ready of everyone. And honestly,
But
yeah,
like
what's it?
the innocent mantle citizens who don't fight. Well, like,
Honest,
here's a sandstorm.
honestly, even then, like I don't think there's that. Like I mean, okay, there are some citizens who I'd say do fit that category of like yeah, they don't like. I felt like everyone I've seen so far there is like part of a tribe or part of someone that can fight or does something to be able to fight. There's not a lot of like
In
citizens
Mantle?
in Mantle,
I
yeah.
don't know. I think the majority of the people aren't fighters.
Like I've gotten a very like different impression of that from what I've seen because like it sounds like the grim attacks were like super frequent around
Right,
there.
but like that's why they needed Penny though, because like they couldn't really defend
Oh, sorry, no,
themselves.
in Mantle you're right about that. I meant in Vacuo. That's what I was meant to say.
Oh, okay,
I was
okay.
my
No, 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 no,
sorry
no, no.
brain.
You're
Yep.
good. You're good. So my argument is that why would you drop innocent Mantle citizens who can't fight into a sandstorm and then be like, Salem's coming,
Is it, what I meant to say is like by dropping them in Vacuo, like you have like a
good
biggest
protection.
defense that they're getting.
Okay.
That's what I'm
I
trying to
do
get.
get that. I do. I don't really understand why they had to evacuate in the first place out of Atlas because Salem was gone. Oh, it was the bomb.
We,
But then they take down Ironwood. So like, why did they still go?
well, 'cause I mean, like at that point, like they took Salem out, but they didn't know how long she was going to be gone for
Right.
because they knew eventually she was going to come back because she can't be killed. So at that point, they were like, okay, let's get the relic out of here and as far from Salem as
But
we
then
possibly
but
can.
then Salem gets the relic. And that is I am so glad she did.
Yeah.
Because Team Ruby failed. They failed
Oh,
big
they
time.
failed
They failed so
big time.
bad.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, and it is so funny. Because this is what they did. This is what Team Ruby did, okay?
Everyone failed.
Okay, they failed so badly. Again, Ironwood, he was not blameless in Volume 8 at all. Like
Absolutely
he
not.
made
No.
so many mistakes, but I think Team Ruby messed up even more than he did, which I think is really funny because I don't think the writers realized how much they messed up. So Team Ruby, they had the plan with the portals to evacuate Atlas and Mantle at the same time, which
Right.
I think it was a total cop out because they never established the rules of the staff beforehand, and
Yeah,
I
it's like
think
here it is.
right, and I think they dug themselves into a hole and they're like, "Oh shoot, how do we evacuate everybody?" And then
Yeah.
they're like, "Magic superpower,
Sure. Yeah.
sure." But then they take the staff out of the vault and they bring it with them to Vacuo and they don't protect it. They just hand it to Penny, who just became a human, who doesn't know how to use her maiden powers, and then Salem gets it.
Yeah, I was like, didn't know how to use her maiden powers, and on top of that, was not used to like fighting without like appendages and that kind of
Exactly, like she
thing.
just became a human.
Yeah, which
And
I think even for like a human, she fought pretty well. I was gonna
right,
say in that scene,
right,
all
yeah,
things
no, she
considered.
tried her best, but like they completely forgot about the relic, and then they let Salem get it,
Hmm.
and that was Ironwood's whole thing was like you cannot let Salem get the relic, and they're like, oh well, here you go, like they
Oops,
basically gift
whoops.
wrapped it for
Yeah.
her, and also because Team Ruby took like they didn't lift Atlas back up, right? Because they had to make the portals. They caused Atlas to fall into Mantle,
Yeah.
and you can argue all the citizens were gone, but they just destroyed a whole continent.
Yep. Yep. No, they
And like
did.
and
They
like
did.
and there was heavy foreshadowing in Volume 7 when Ironwood like explained the rules of the staff. He's like, "Oh, it's what's keeping Atlas
Yeah, that's
on."
why it's
Right. It
left
can
here.
only be used for one purpose at a time, so if someone else uses it, Atlas is going to fall. So they set that up in Volume 7, and I was like, okay, Salem's going to get the staff and destroy Atlas, and it's going to be so cool. But nope, Team Ruby destroyed
Yeah.
Atlas.
I was like, no, no, Salem, we got you.
Look,
This
we
one's
got
on
you.
us.
We got you.
This one's on us. This one's on us. Which again, like you could play into that as like again that's Salem's whole MO. She wanted to manipulate.
Right, but then they don't blame Team Ruby for it.
They don't.
They
No,
don't, and they messed up so badly there.
they did.
They
No, they
they
did. They
they
did.
got Penny killed. They gave Salem two relics in the span of one day or 2 days.
Yeah.
They destroyed Atlas. They got people killed on the bridge. Remember, like when they were going through the portal, and then like
Right.
Salem, like not Salem, Cinder like blasted people, and they fell into the Ever After, and then we never see them in the Ever After.
Well, as in, we actually don't know if they died or not. Though I would like to say, it's like,
You know what? I think in the commentary they said they died.
did they really?
I
Okay,
think.
good. See, if they said in the commentary, then I
That's
recant everything I said. But I was gonna say, like, as far as we know, it's just like we didn't really see a whole lot of
right.
humans there, which like that is a safe assumption to say like, there's a pretty good chance they died, given
Yeah.
how crazy that
And
entire
again,
world
I know
is.
Team Ruby didn't mean to kill anyone. They were trying their best, man,
They
but
really,
they made a mistake. They made a big mistake, and the show never like was like, hey, by the way, you did really bad.
yeah,
Like they were just like, you're perfect.
tried, I guess, kind of doing that with
Yeah.
line,
From what
but
I saw of Volume 9, I was really happy about like how they were kind of like building up to Ruby realizing that they messed up and they have to fix it. But then the final of Volume 9, they're like, you're perfect just the way you are. Don't change.
yeah, which honestly, like that's a whole other discussion in and of
Yeah,
the whole message behind Volume 9 felt like it got really messy by
it
the
really
end.
did.
Like they had such a strong start going for them, and it's like
Uh-huh.
I hate, I especially hate to quote Ruby on this because of the fact that so many people have memed the scene to death. But the scene,
Is it the homophobic Ruby meme?
yes, yes, it is. I was gonna say I hate to like. 'Cause here's the thing, I'm also a Bumblebee shipper. I will.
I am
It's just like
too. I am too.
I saw the signs, or I thought I saw what I thought were signs of it, and I wanted to believe with that fan base that it was going to happen. And
Mm-hmm.
like I understand the discourse with that. I've seen so many shipping wars that have happened, and
Mm-hmm.
like I'm so happy we finally got that confirmation
I am too
in this volume.
because they were like the reason one of the big reasons that got me into the show is because I'm sorry to cut you off. I know
Oh
you were
no, no,
gonna
you're
say
fine, you're fine,
something,
you're fine. Yeah.
but I like walked in on my mom and sister watching the Blake and Yang versus Adam fight, and I was like, "What's going on?" And they're like, "Stop talking." And I was like, "Okay, I want to watch the show for them because I thought they were like going to get together, and I'm glad they did because I really like them together. I really ship
Yeah,
them."
like it makes so much sense given everything they've been through and just a lot of the stuff
Yeah.
in the beginning. Like it to me, it was always going to happen. I think that it was. I think a lot of people like might not like that that was the case,
Yeah,
but
and like you don't have to like them, but like personally, I think like I really do, and I think it was done well.
yeah, I do too. But it's like my argument with that is not that I'm mad that it happened. It's more so that like that it got attention as opposed to like a lot of the other stuff
Of
that
them
was going
making
on.
mistakes.
Yeah, it's just like
Yes.
glad that it happened. Yes, like good for them. But as Ruby said, like we're so happy for you. I legitimately am.
Congratulations, by the way. We're so happy for
Yeah, like
you.
I legitimately am. I want to clarify that. I legitimately am very happy for them that it happened.
But there are
But
bigger
yeah,
issues.
but there are like bigger things that are
Yeah.
happening. And it's like I love like
Mhm.
Jean's reactions of just like, are you done? Like all those reactions. Like, A, I get it, John, but also chill. But
Right.
then also like he's right. Like there's so many other things that they need to worry about. Getting out of the ever after, fighting Salem, all that other stuff. The
Exactly.
fact that they got people killed.
The fact that they messed up so bad and they gave Salem two relics. That's a problem. She's one step closer to destroying the world. And if she does destroy the world, it's partly because of them, which I don't think the show's gonna acknowledge.
I don't think it. I feel like they feel like they've gotten the check mark from it from what they did this volume,
Right,
which like
and yeah, in Volume 9, I didn't watch all of it because I really didn't like Volume 8. It just like it killed the show for me, which is really sad to say because again,
yeah,
I really like the show. And Volume 9, it was like for me, I think it was the last like effort the show could have had to fix what they did. Like I was like holding out a little bit of hope that maybe they'd make like Team Ruby like it would be like a reflection volume for them, which
right,
it was, but not in the way I wanted it to be. I thought they'd
yeah,
realize like look back and be like, we shouldn't have lied, we shouldn't have like, done this, we shouldn't have taken that risk. That risk was not worth it. And then they should have realized we didn't save everyone. We can't save everyone. And I wanted them to learn that. But instead, they had them like they were so close. They were coming to that conclusion.
they
They
were.
were, but then it got so sidetracked, and they were like Weiss gave a whole speech. He's like, I guarantee, like the best huntsmen mess up, but they pick themselves up again. This is kind of an extreme example, Weiss.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, and that's the other thing of just like a lot of the volume. Like they didn't have a lot of time to like. as much as it was reflection, it feels like we didn't get enough of it really. And it's
We
like
didn't get enough character in it.
we
It was a
didn't.
lot of John, which like shout out to John, but like
Yeah, for not getting any development like ever.
right, and like then they like make him be young again when he had to like literally
Undo
he's like a
everything
30-year-old man in a teenager's body. Okay, that's no trauma.
at all.
And
No.
then like the whole thing where Ruby drank the tea, I it was I don't think it was done well at all.
Yeah, I don't either, and that's a shame because honestly, that was my favorite scene of the entire
Oh
volume. Like
yes,
I,
the tea party scene where all like the people came,
yeah.
like where Neo made the illusions of like Penny and Ironwood and Oz. That was so well done.
Granted, how did she know about Ironwood
I
though?
don't
Is what
know.
a lot
I
of
don't
people I think are
know.
asking. But like, how did
You know, good question. How did she know about Leo and Clover and Penny?
there's a
How
number
did
of
she know
people?
Penny?
Yeah,
Actually,
there's a number of people.
I never got Ruby's reaction to Penny dying. We
No,
didn't. She just passed out, and then she never talked about it again.
yet no one talks about it. Like, again,
That's
like Ruby got like no love or attention, which is a shame because like she is supposed to be like I've said this before in other like videos of mine of like I do believe that there is such a thing as like having one character as like the central narrative while
Mhm.
still branching off to focus on
Like
others.
the Owl House, which you talked
Yeah,
about
like
before.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. And it's like Ruby is supposed to be the central focus of the story.
but
It's
she never gets anything.
exactly it's just like she like the first couple of volumes are just like she's an all-star and
Hmm.
then like yeah, she messes up, but then she doesn't really get the chance to like
She
reflect
doesn't
on
get any
that.
consequences to her actions. She's like she's allowed to. She's just like can get away with anything.
Yeah, which she shouldn't be allowed to. Yes, she's a
Right.
kid and she's allowed to make mistakes.
But they need to call, like, the adults in her life, especially Crow, need to call her out on those mistakes. But when they do, she's like, "Stop it! I'm the best." And then they're like, "I'm so sorry, Ruby. You're right. You are the best."
Yeah,
She like
which
Dukes Ex Machina saves the day. Or,
I mean, it feels like that's still what's going to end up being what
oh,
happens for a lot
100%.
of it. But like,
Yeah, Volume 9, it was going in the right direction from what I saw because I liked how they made her like, because she was so happy and positive, but they made her like get beaten down and get really depressed. But by the end of the volume, it was just like they flipped a switch and she was cured. And that's not how depression works. You're not
no,
just cured like in like a second and then you're like, none of that happened, my trauma's gone. Like,
yeah,
no.
which
She
also
literally killed herself.
that's the other thing. She didn't actually even like. It doesn't feel like she really did. Which I'm not saying that they should have like implied more that that's what was going on. But like
Hmm.
the whole thing with the tree was that it was implying that like you're not dying in the like the sense that you would think, but everything you are. It's like I'm a big fan of Doctor Who. I've talked this one's ear off about Doctor Who recently, but like there's a line in Doctor Who where like the for those who don't know, like, the Doctor's whole arc is that eventually something happens that quote unquote kills him,
Mm,
and then he regenerates into a brand new person. But the way the 10th Doctor describes that is who he is dies. Everything that makes up his character, who
mm.
he is, dies as someone else rises up from it. And I feel like that's what they were trying to imply with this. Like everything that made up who Ruby was supposed to be or who she was supposed to die in favor of someone else. And like I like the idea of like it's okay to be who you are and I like that message,
Right.
but they could have gotten to that message in a lot of different ways.
The way they got to that message was like, kill yourself to find out you're worthy.
You find out you were perfect
Like,
all along.
what?
Yeah.
And especially the way I know we talked about this before, how Yang just stood there and watched Ruby drink the tea. And you can knock it up to shock. She didn't know what was happening. You know, Neo was there, the cat was there. But I don't like how they don't write Yang to care about Ruby.
Yes, at all. That the other two like we get some minor stuff in Volume 8 where it's like, still trying to one up your big sis and like that whole scene
Hmm.
was like the closest we've gotten really to Yang and Blake really or not Yang, Yang and Ruby being there for each other the way that they're meant to be as
Because
sisters.
they just don't feel like sisters. And again, I love Yang. She's my favorite of Team Ruby. I really like her. I really liked her character arc. But
Yeah.
now she just like even the aftermath after Ruby drank the tea, like they don't know if she's gonna be okay. They think like she's, gonna die and come back like forgetting who she is and being a totally different person. But Yang's all smiley and she's like, John, it's okay, John, it's okay. When like they should be comforting Yang right now, and she should be like crying her eyes out, being like, I should have been there for my sister. I failed her. I'm a bad sister, and I hope she's okay. And but she's like none of that. She was just like smiling. She's like, yippee.
So, which, in fairness, that does like not to say like that feels like a lot of Yang's arc from what I've seen of it. Of like she's been put through so much. I mean, losing her mom
Yeah,
twice,
that's right.
then losing her best friend, losing her arm,
Mm-hmm.
nearly losing her life,
Yeah, she's been through a lot. They all have.
They all have been, but like I feel like Yang especially because she's been going through so much since before the show even started. But my whole thing with that is like she's been through a lot, and yet at the same time she's been like the most solid character of all of them.
Hmm.
Like when any one of the characters was stressed or having something going on, it was always Yang
Yeah,
they relied on.
she's like the rock. She's like the older like sister, like
She
literally, and like
is.
yeah, yeah. But like it would have been nice to see her break down, you know?
It would have been, but I'm saying like I feel like that like on one hand there is that part of her that is a very much a part of like who she is, but that doesn't mean she shouldn't have had a reaction. Like this is
Right. Like
you're
she had no reaction. She
exactly
wasn't even focused on Ruby. She was focused on Jean.
like you're talking about your sister, half sister I know, but still
Yeah.
sister, someone you've lived and spent so much time with, someone you from what we've gotten from the show loved to pieces. There should have been more of a reaction to that. And like
A
what
hundred percent.
I feel like what they could have done in that moment particularly is like Ruby's about to go drink the tea. We were saying that like Yang should have just come in and just slapped
No,
that tea out
literally,
of
she
her
should have
hand.
like ran in there with her like semblance and like bursted it away and be like, "What are you doing, Ruby?" And then they could have like gone engaged with the fight with Neo and the cat, and then Ruby and Yang could have been like screaming at each other, and then they could have like been crying and like
And then we could have gotten to like a really sweet moment with the two of them.
like they
And
could have hugged and be like we messed up really badly, but like
it's
it's
okay.
okay. Like we have to like be better than that, and we have to like make up for what we did. So we have to live to get back and make up for what we did.
Yeah, and then just like something about like just like killing yourself is not the way to do it, or a message about just like
Yes.
suicide is not.
Exactly, because that's such a harmful message, and I don't think they meant it.
No, I don't think
But
they
it's
did
just, it's
either.
like, how many times are we gonna say I don't think they meant it,
Yeah,
though?
because
You
it's
know,
just
this is like the final straw, I feel
it's like
like.
I'd say honestly, can we have a counter that I edit into this video of like how many times we've said that over the course of this entire
Can
thing?
you actually? I mean, that would take a lot of
I
work,
mean,
but
I'd be re-listening to this entire thing like multiple times, but like, it's all fine. It's like it just like, it really does feel like just they didn't really feel like they knew what they were doing with this story, and it's like I don't know what they actually intended for the tree to represent, or what they intended for like drinking the leaves to represent, because it seems like they meant for it to represent suicide. That they
right,
meant
which is what I got out of it, and I think that's really harmful.
yeah, no, I think it is too, but it's just
Yeah.
like that's what it feels like they meant to say with it, which is the problem is
Yeah.
because they don't follow through with
They
it the
don't
way that
think.
they
I'm
don't.
sorry. Like, again, these writers
It's
have
like
written,
right.
have written a lot of what I like.
It's also like want to talk about you're not knowing how to write stories you don't have experience with, yet you write
Right.
this.
Like I'm gonna be nice, but I feel like with volume 9 is where I'm kind of gonna allow myself to not be nice because I just think if you're dealing with suicide, you have to be really careful, and they were not careful. So I think we have a right to like call them out on this because it's really not okay.
It's not, and again, like it's such a shame too, because like, I wanted to say that Volume 9 is like one of the better volumes we've gotten
Mm,
since everything that's happened. Like, there's so many moments of it. Like, I love Neo as a character, and I don't know
yeah.
how hot of a take that is. Just like I think there's so much development that went into Neo from like the books, going into the actual series to her whole revenge vendetta against Ruby, which had like no payoff in the end afterward. But then again, like just everything that went into that, like her whole thing with that, and her whole message of the
And you
reincarnation.
read her book too, so
She
you
did,
know her
yeah.
backstory. Yeah.
I understand the meaning behind one thing so much better because of I just like Roman was the only thing she had in her life that she could rely on.
Mm.
Like she was going to schools where she was told you can't be yourself. She was going to schools where she was being made into a person she didn't want to be. Roman was the only person who actually accepted and understood her. Like I think there's a scene where like she has like a voice box or something like that that she has to like type up what she's saying for people to actually understand what she's trying to get
Mm.
at. She never used that with Roman. Roman just understood from every feature
Yeah,
and
and
every
I
little
really
detail.
liked that. I really liked her too, and I wish they did more with her, especially because they didn't like her backstory was in a book, which
Yeah.
I get, like, budget wise, you can't fit everything in, but I think something as important as, understanding your villain, I think needs to be in the show.
I was thinking, yet they have the time to do scenes that don't make sense. Like,
Exactly, exactly. Like there was a on their panel with Ironwood Semblance, they're like, we wanted to put it in the show, but there was just so much more important stuff we had to fit in because every second of volume 8 is so precious. That's what they said.
which
And it's like, okay, no, stop lying.
yeah, so like if you want to make the argument of like, oh, it's a budget thing or something like that, it's like A, budget does not determine story. It just determines the
Exactly.
lens
Like the
you can
first few
use.
volumes had a lower budget and the story was really good.
Yeah, no, it was. Like, I mean, like you can say whatever you want to about the animation. I didn't care like
Yeah.
whether the animation looked good for the first couple of volumes or not. The story was so riveting that I was able to just watch and be so enthralled by it.
Yeah, and like of course you're gonna want something like like aesthetically pleasing to look at, but I think in the end, like most problems with TV and movies is going to bottle down to the writing, so that is just not a budget issue, that's a skill issue.
Yeah, which I'm saying, even if it is a budget issue, we as people who like we what have we been talking about this entire video? It's that they've made choices as writers that they
Ex-
didn't have to make.
exactly, it doesn't have anything to do with the budget.
Like, I'm saying, just remove those scenes that we're talking about, and you would have been fine.
Literally, like it's not that hard. It's like right, like it's
I mean,
not.
again, like I don't want to assume because of that like we've never like actually worked on an actual set.
Right, we don't know what it's like behind the scenes with the
Exactly.
production,
Yeah, like
all that stuff.
we don't know who's making a lot of these choices or like why. We don't know. Like I think there is a part of me that's like maybe this isn't the writers, it's more like the producers who are saying like yeah we want it this way, so
Well,
we
I
might
just
have to.
think with Rooster Teeth, it's like that because, like, these core writers like Miles and Carrie, like they weren't they there from like the beginning with Monty, and they like planned this out, so it's like it's their story, and I think that's the problem is they're not willing to get like other writers or like perspectives to write it. It's like this is our story, this is what we're gonna do. You know what I mean? I think that's what it
Yeah,
is.
but like, I also think it might not necessarily be as much their story anymore because like I mean
Well,
like
then who's the higher up who's telling them to write this? Like who's
that's the $1 million question. But like it does feel like there was like such a sudden change, despite the fact that there are people who've been with the show since like the very, very beginning.
because again they wrote some really good stuff like it's
They
not
have.
like we're like rest in peace to Monty, but we're not going to make the argument that like the show just became awful after he died, because I don't think it did, because like it was the same team except him, you
Yeah, like there
know.
are elements of it that are still good despite the fact that we don't have Monty with us anymore. Which like I do like as much as I'm sure like a lot of people wish that Monty was still with us and that he was still able to do a lot more stuff with these shows. With a lot of different shows, not even just RWBY. I'm also a fan of Red versus Blue, and I know a lot of the stuff he worked on for that.
Mm.
There's a lot of stuff we wish that Monty was still around for. But I also don't want to discredit the hard work that the writers on the show currently are putting into it. And I do feel like just there is some other voice that is working behind the scenes with this and think we can't speak to that because we don't know what's
Yeah,
going on.
we don't know what goes on behind the scenes. We don't know the intentions of the writers. Like we were talking about, with the characters and intent versus outcome. We don't know that, and I think it would be unfair to assume stuff. But we have a right to be like, vocal about stuff we don't like.
We do,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it's like we're saying like, there are things we feel like they could have very easily done. And I'm sure like maybe even the writers are listening to this saying like, yeah, you're absolutely right. We could have.
You know
But
what? I hope
also
the writers are listening to
I,
this. I'm gonna send. I need to send them my fanfic. I'm literally going to.
I was gonna say if the writers are listening to this, hi, we're big fans. But also,
So
but also like there are parts of the time like I'm sure they're listening and like, yeah, we could have done it that way, but like maybe there's a reason that they couldn't. There's a reason that they didn't.
I want to know those reasons.
Yeah,
I literally want to sit down with them and be like, explain your thought process. But that's what the commentaries are for, and it just makes me even more angry. Like the commentaries just don't solve anything. They make it worse. And I'm like, no, I really don't understand your thought process.
I'm sorry to like a lot of things like that. Like I haven't watched them myself, and I'm sure I might have the exact same reaction because it's just like I have read commentaries of things, and I'm just like this confuses me more than what.
Yeah, I watched the whole Volume 8 commentary, and I watched some of Volume 7, but I didn't do Volume 9, which I don't think I will.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, like, I might just look into it now because again, like I wanted to believe so much in the potential for Volume 9, but it just doesn't feel like they've really like hit it the
Yeah,
way that they
no,
could have.
no, they didn't. They really didn't. And I'm honestly of the belief that I think it was a filler volume. I really do, because they ended the volume exactly where they started the volume. Like there was no like nothing stuck with it. They didn't learn anything that like carried through. Like that's what I think.
Right. No, I think I agree to
Yeah.
that. I do feel like I'm very like I'm a stickler when it comes to filler arcs in anything I've read. I mean, I'm
Mm.
an anime fan. There's a lot of filler arcs that we deal with,
Oh, yes.
but it's just like it filler arcs. Sometimes you need them in there because of that they add a layer of exposition or depth that other like you can't fit into
Yeah,
cleanly
and
into
like
other
and like
things.
filler, I think is a very broad term, because some
Mhm.
episodes that would be considered filler, like that aren't plot heavy, are character heavy, and I really like character heavy stuff. Like that's my favorite, like
Yeah, I do too.
aspect of shows is like the characters and when they dig deep into who they are. But I would call Volume 9 filler because I don't think they did enough of that. Like they tried, it didn't stick, you know?
Right, like just didn't stick the way that they wanted to. Like, and
Yeah.
what I say is like filler to me is like you have like your character driven filler, which like oh yeah, I love seeing those. Or, like anything that like it adds a layer of depth that we otherwise would never have gotten from
Mm-hmm.
other characters that we either never see or anything like that. I love seeing those. But so often when I think of filler, what I think of is like you gave us, something, but it didn't do anything. Like it didn't give us a thing that actually moved things forward
Right,
or
and
added something to the
exactly. And
characters.
also they took a step back on the actual plot with Salem and the relics, which I think it was a good idea to like because that plot was getting really convoluted. But if you take like, the whole season to just like not focus on like what's going on in Vacuo, because when they got back there was like a time jump and they're like, "Oh yeah, we dealt with all the problems you left behind. You don't have to deal with
Yeah,
them."
don't worry, I know.
Like we should have saw what they were doing in Vacuo and like because
Yeah,
they ended up in Vacuo when they went through the portals to a sandstorm and Grim picking off people and killing people.
right.
And like we never saw that. Like how did they deal with that?
And on top of that, I think it is implied, or I actually don't know, because there's a deleted scene that they released that was supposed
Yes,
to be at the end.
it's 9.
Yeah, it was supposed to be the end of Volume 9. It's probably going to be the beginning of Volume 10,
Oh, it better
whenever
be.
that
They better
gets.
put it in because that was like important stuff.
Listen, I don't know, but the thing is also like there's some things about that they imply which I don't, or like from what I understood, like there's a portal that shows up in that, right? Like Raven is implied to be, which
Yeah.
by the way, about damn time you
No,
decide to show
really.
up,
Like,
Raven. It's like
girl, what is your excuse?
it's just like you dip after Volume 5 and then we
She's
never
like,
see
I'ma
you.
head out. Also,
Exactly.
Yang never told anyone that she's the Spring Maiden.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Which I get. I don't really blame her for that. There's kind of a lot going on.
did she not?
She didn't. She didn't tell anyone. It might have happened off screen, but she never told them.
Oh, because we never really okay. Because like, I feel like they did like mention something like the beginning of Volume 6 or something like that.
I
Or
don't think they did.
okay, maybe it's also like I'm thinking of like Watts with the conversation she had with Cinder. Like that's one thing like everyone knows. It's just like he knows. So,
They kind of forget sometimes who knows stuff and who doesn't. Because
like,
sometimes a character will say something, and it's like, how do you know that? You weren't there.
yeah. Case in point, we were saying with Neo. How did she know about
Yeah,
Penny or Ironwood or any of
right.
that stuff?
Can we talk about Penny for a minute
Yeah,
too?
sure.
Also,
Let's.
how long do you want to go for? Because we're at 2 hours.
I listen. I'm willing to just go. It's like until we run
Until we
out of
run out of stuff to
points.
talk about. Okay, yeah. Yeah, Penny. I love her so much, and I didn't like. It's kind of the same as Ironwood. I didn't like, love her when she first came in like the first few volumes. I thought she was cute. But then
Quirky.
volume 7, she's so cute,
Yep.
and then she became the mating, and that was such a good arc for her because
Yep.
it
Like
set up.
plot twist.
No, and it was such a good plot twist because like you could have seen it coming, but it worked so well because her whole allegory is Pinocchio, and
Right.
like I don't like how they made Penny a real human because her whole arc was that she was human enough without actually being human, which I really liked because that's what she learned in volume 2 even when Ruby was like she was like you think just because you got like nuts and bolts you're less of a human than me,
You have a
and it was
soul.
like yeah it was really cute, and I really liked how like the maiden powers choosing Penny symbolized that she was human enough to earn them,
Right.
and that was like her becoming a human was like you're a robot but you like you have these powers that are normally given, to humans, but then they were given to you, so that must mean you're like, a real human. And I really like that.
Yeah, I never
Yeah.
thought of it. Like, kind of thing, I liked the scene where they made her human just because I thought that was smart and how they handled it. Which a lot of people like
I didn't like
Arnold
it.
explained how that happened and like how the science behind all that.
No, the science doesn't make any sense how they use like
It
the
did.
staff. Well, it did if you don't
Mhm.
think about it too hard, but I'm
Mhm.
also going to say if the volume 8
Oh my.
right? They said we know Ruby cheats right here, but she's allowed to fudge the rules because the spirits in the relics want the good guys to win, so they don't care if you follow the rule as long as you follow the intent of the law.
They say as they lock everyone and leave them to die in vacuum.
Literally. I'm
Yeah,
like, what the heck are you talking about?
yeah,
You can't let Team Ruby get away with breaking the rules like this. And their excuse was like she called Jin in volume 6 widhout a wish
right.
or without a
So
question.
clearly they
And
spirits like her. Oh, oh,
they're allowed to just
yeah.
bend the rules and be like, it's fine.
See, I wish they would have gone with Arnold's explanation of that because it's just like
Yeah,
they,
his made sense. I did
yeah,
watch the video. It made sense.
they said like the way that works, like it can't destroy things, so that's why it was forced into a situation where it had to create.
Yeah,
Could be
I
destroyed.
do like that. I think that's really cool. I think making Penny a real human is just like it's way too on the nose with the actual Pinocchio story, and it takes away from her really good arc of realizing she's human enough without actually being human. Like I just think it
Right.
stripped away her entire arc.
Like I said, I didn't think of it like quite that. Like I thought like
Yeah.
like the allegory of that being like Pinocchio, like that it had to end there because that's how Pinocchio's story
Right, and
ends. But
that's again like I really like how all the characters are like, connected to a certain fairy tale character, but I think in volume 8, especially with like Cinder's backstory, they went way too on the nose. They're like, "Oh, let's just actually give her Cinderella's backstory."
yeah,
Like
which they
the
don't even really do at the same
no,
time.
no. Like I just and also the only reason they made Penny a human was so they could kill her permanently. Because they already set up that if she died again as a robot, Pietro, her father, had enough aura left to bring her back one more time. They set that up. So they wanted to kill her permanently, and they're like, how do we do that? Make her a human. 20 minutes later, kill her.
I was gonna say, everyone catch a clip of this right now because I'm willing to bet that when Volume 10 does eventually come down, or maybe even Volume 12 down the
You think
line,
they're gonna bring her
yeah,
back?
they're gonna bring her
Oh
back
my
once
god.
again, and we're all gonna be like, "Fuck!"
See, I want her back, but like I don't
I
because
don't.
like I wish they didn't kill her because like then they gave Winter the maiden powers. Like okay, no one saw that coming. Not
Yeah, nah. Only like the whole name thing reference. People laughed at me when I said that Winter was gonna be the Winter Maiden. She was the Winter Maiden because of her name.
also want to bet that Summer's the Summer Maiden and is still alive.
There's something, especially now with reading the fan fictions and reading how this author handled Summer. I want Summer so badly in this, and I wish that they handle her the same way they do in that fic. I'm betting that they probably won't, but
Yeah, I personally don't want her to be alive just because I think it would take away a lot of actually I don't think it would take away from
I was gonna
anything
say,
because she like doesn't even have a presence
I was
really.
gonna say, what presence would it be taking away from? What arc would it be taking
No,
away
wait,
from
you're
exactly?
literally so right. But we never learned. I think I told you this before when
Yeah,
Crow in volume 7, he told Ruby like that Summer's last mission, no one knows where she went.
yeah,
Oz doesn't even know where she went. It was a Summer secret, he said. And so we
right,
know she went, we know she stole the lamp and asked a question and then went to fight Salem. That's all we know. Or at least
and
that's
that's
what we
it.
can
Yeah,
imply. And we learn that she asked this. Did she ask the same question that Ruby did? Like, how do we beat Salem? And they're like, you can. Is that what she asked, or do we just not know?
we don't know. I mean, honestly, I completely forgot she even asked the Relica question. To be
Wait, she
honest,
did, yeah. Which I think I'm right about that she did because remember Salem was like your mother like said those same things to me and
she was wrong too.
right, and so we know that that Summer confronted Salem. We
Yeah,
don't know anything about it, and
yeah,
it's like we're 9 volumes in. Why don't we know
yeah.
the backstory?
And there's also like, why did they give us the little like snippet of Summer in Volume 9? Like, I understand like you were
Right.
trying to do that to like get Ruby to make the understanding of like, oh yeah, I'm fine as I am, and like again leading into that, but also like
Yeah.
you didn't do that. All you did was make us mad that you don't give us Summer.
Wait there because we don't know how much her mom really meant to her even though of course like it's her mom's dead like that's or is she dead we don't know
Yeah, that's the other thing. I mean,
like of course that's gonna affect her it's just it doesn't have that much emotional weight for me because we don't know anything about Summer so why should we care
right.
like no offense
I mean, that's the other thing also. Like they never really made that clear. And it's like I remember for the longest time I thought like before we got a lot more explanation as to who Salem is, I remember theories popping up everywhere that Summer was Salem in some way. But
yeah that's interesting
yeah, like, and I believed that theory for the longest time, and then I talked about it with a friend of mine. He played devil's advocate for it, and what he pointed out, which I didn't realize, is they do actually confirm that Summer is dead. In I think it was the Red trailer. They mentioned like if you go on like the wiki and you read like some of the stuff for like the trailer, they say like Ruby did find Summer's body
what
or something like that. Yeah,
are you
I'm
serious
serious. Yeah, they confirm she is
that is
absolutely dead.
literally are you
Yeah,
so
no,
like
I was
what
shocked
like
by
a
it too.
5-year-old Ruby found her dead mom's body
Something
and
like
they
that. Yeah.
never brought that up in the show
No, they never brought it up in the show.
that's
Nope.
kind of important.
Yeah, little bit. Yeah,
Because
little
you
bit.
know what? That would make me like Ruby so much better because that is traumatizing.
Or like, okay, I might actually be like not exact because like I know like she does like look at the body or like sees the body or something like that. Like they say like I remember having this argument with my friend ages ago, and I'll ask him if he like remembers what we were saying for that. Like I remember we were having this argument. He pulled up the Wikia page for like Salem or Summer or something like that, and it does say like in the red trailer that Ruby maybe not like at that young age, but like maybe when she was like visiting the grave in that did like see the body or something like that.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's like it is confirmed
Okay.
that Summer is absolutely dead. Like it is confirmed that there's no shot that she's alive. It's just we don't know how it happened. Is the thing.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think she's alive unless she was a hound,
Yeah,
like
no,
the
which
grim
I think,
human hound, Silver Eyes, whatever that was.
which again, like, I think that would have been interesting. But then again, they also never do anything with that. Like, how many Silver-Eyed Warriors are still alive? Is the question.
Right, and like what are they? Like
Well,
why do they
I mean,
exist? Did
like,
they talk about that? They kind of did.
all we know is like they're an experiment that Salem did, and that's it.
The silver, oh, you mean the hounds?
Yeah, the hell, like she was
Right.
like she said like that was an experiment that she was doing, and that's it. But then it also then again says where was she keeping this silver-eyed warrior? Or
And like, and is that what she wants with Ruby? And if so, why hasn't she tried to take Ruby? You
well,
know?
I mean, she did originally. Like, I mean, that's why she sent Tyrion after her, right? It wasn't to kill her; it's to kidnap her.
Oh, yeah, it was, but they kind of dropped that, didn't they?
I mean, yeah, because then Crow just kind of swoops in, and then
I
yeah,
forgot about that. Yeah, I would like to see more of why, because Ruby's like she's special, she's got her silver eyes, but
yeah.
like they don't she hasn't
I
learned to
mean,
use them yet.
she hasn't really
Like,
no.
girl, come on.
But I mean, like, also then again, like, she hasn't really had a reason to since Volume 8, where, like, I felt like she did, like, have, like, some better mastery over it, that she was ready to use it against Cinder.
She
But,
used it in volume 7, but what I don't get like what they do, because you said, it froze the Grim in volume 3, but it
right.
also made Cinder lose her arm.
Yeah.
And then she uses it against Cinder in volume 7 and Cinder's perfectly fine.
No, was she perfectly fine? I thought she, like, collapsed or, like, spasmed or something like that after that.
There was just like a blinding light and she was gone. And then we see her at the end of the volume and she's just like angry, but like there's nothing like about her body that's like, she didn't lose anything.
Are you sure? Because, like, so I know, like, in Volume 5, she used it, and then it, like, really, like, hurt her arm or that kind of thing. And I thought it did the same thing in Volume 7, and then she ran
I
away.
think Winter cut off her grim arm. And that was when she was like,
Oh, and then that's.
and then Ruby comes in and like blasts their eyes and then Cinder's gone.
So then I think, but then she just ran away then, isn't it?
Right. So we don't know if the eyes
Did anything in that case because like that's also the other confusing thing of like I don't know when the grim like whatever like that grim arm of hers is when that really started. 'Cause I always thought like that was always there. It just kind of looked like a human arm all this
Okay, I
time.
think we talked about this before. I
Yeah, we
thought she
did.
got that from when Ruby like blasted her in volume 3 because then she also lost her eye.
Right, but then my problem with that is like it didn't make sense to me because then it's like why was she affected as like a human? Like was it the maiden powers reacting to the silver eyes or
Right,
how
and
does
like
that?
like that's what I'm saying. Like I don't know what the Silver Eyes do. Literally don't know
Yeah,
what they do.
because from what we were told, like it sounds like it's specifically made just to work on the Grim, which is why I thought like, oh, because she had the Grim arm and whatever was going on with her eye, that's why
Oh,
it affected her.
maybe. I don't know. I think she got the Grim Arm from Ruby, but
Yeah,
I'll have to check because I actually don't know. That's a good
I
point.
think you and I like did look it up the exact day we had that original
Right, didn't
discussion. Like,
we? Did we figure it
yeah, we
out?
did. Like, we said like she did have an original like human arm and human eye, but then we don't know
Okay.
why. Like we thought like maybe it was like because she did have like the grim bug that she used that like absorbed the thing, which that doesn't make sense to me either.
No,
And I think
like
I
she
even
had like a like the glove.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
I
it's
don't
like all of that
know.
like didn't make sense. And again, like you just that's the problem of like you have so much going on, and it's fine to have so much going on, but when you have these moments to stop, explain it. Tell us
Exactly.
what's
Like
going
there's
on.
so many cool characters. Like I was such a Cinder fan when in
Yeah,
the first
same.
few volumes. I still do like her. I that's fair. I think she's overstayed her welcome quite a bit.
Yeah, no, she has. It's just like it. I wanted so much more because like, Cinder was, for all intents and purposes, such a good villain before Salem, and it's like
Yeah.
even when we saw that Salem was like the higher up compared to even Cinder, I still believed that we would have gotten so much more from her. But then she just kind of became just a
Yeah,
lackey
and
at
it
that
seems
point.
like the writers are setting her up to be the big bad and like overthrow Salem, which I really don't I really hope that doesn't happen because Cinder kind of feels like Ruby where she doesn't get consequences as much. Like she literally lied to Salem's face when she gave her like the relic at the end of volume 8
Right?
and
Yeah.
Salem's just like, "Good job, Cinder." And like from her tone it seemed like Salem knew she was lying, but we don't know.
Yeah.
You know?
Which I mean, like, if she does, I mean, like, it doesn't change, like, I think that much because just like,
Yeah.
I got what I wanted. Does it really matter how I did it?
Right. I just really hope they don't like make Cinder somehow like kill Salem and be like I'm the big bad now, guys. I
Yeah.
hope that doesn't happen. I also don't want her or Salem to get reformed. I think that'd be way too cheap.
Yeah, I don't either. The thing is, like, what I could see happening is like not so necessarily that either one of them gets reformed, and not even that Cinder like betrays Salem, but more so that like something happens to one of the characters, they kill off the other character,
Mm.
and then the other one just continues doing what they were doing from there as if nothing happened. Like I can see like either
Yeah.
Cinder dies and then Salem just keeps doing her thing like nothing
Oh
changed.
yeah, she doesn't care about
Yeah.
Cinder. She
So just
literally
like
doesn't.
that just goes on its thing. Or miraculously they do the whole like the plot that Arnold brought up and that we've discussed before of like Salem wins. They go through the whole thing. They reset the world, everything like that. Like if you, we'll go into like I guess another video to discuss like that whole theory. I think that's
Of how
interesting.
we think the show's gonna end.
Yeah, I think that's a better discussion for like another
Do you
video.
think? Do you want to? Well, do you want to go till 9? We got like 20 minutes. So do you want to like maybe dive into it a bit?
Yeah, sure, we can.
Yeah.
So just the idea of the theory, or at least from my understanding of it, was like I think Salem is going to win. That she's going to get the four relics together. She's going to summon the gods. The gods are going to wipe everything out. But when they do, they're not going to wipe out Salem. Like what I'm imagining is like everything gets wiped out, the planets, the worlds, everything. So she's just like stuck in this like limbo in space where like she can't breathe, but she can't die. So she's just like stuck there.
Right. Right. Like constantly dying, get like being reborn in like this like agonizing
Exactly.
cycle.
And then I think eventually like she just realizes the futility of it, and like she just realizes like she's not like she becomes like not necessarily like numb to the pain, but like she's like she realizes the futility of everything that she was doing, and eventually comes to this realization in this moment when she's absolutely powerless and can't do anything about her situation. Like she can't do anything. There's nothing more she can do. There's nothing left.
Hmm.
That she realizes that yeah, maybe I you should have realized the value of life all along, and then she like dies from that, and then the
Because she
gods
finally realizes the value of life, and the gods are like, "Okay, you realized it. We can break your curse now."
exactly, and then they realize like okay, Salem was the root of all evil, everyone back, and
Yeah,
then
see, just with that theory, I feel like if you're going to wipe out everyone in the whole world, you can't undo it, which I know they will if they do
yeah,
go down that road because you cannot kill all the characters.
yeah, I mean
But
like you
just,
can't kill
right,
Ruby, like
but just like, I think that would be so cheap if they kill everyone and they're like, surprise, you're back. You know,
well, it's
like
like
I just can't think of a way for the show to end that won't feel cheap, which I feel really bad saying. I
yeah.
really don't know how it's going to end.
It's like, I feel like just it would be like they have to have Salem win because like any other way of like the heroes winning, like even if it's like okay, actually no. How about this? Like if Salem wins, summons the gods, but then the gods. 'Cause I mean, I don't like the idea like the gods wiping her out either. Like
Like,
just like
I think
suddenly.
what I said before is I feel like Team Ruby or the heroes need to realize how about instead of focusing on like stopping Salem, we
Mhm.
focus on uniting humanity, and that would be
Yeah.
with like they have to unite all the kingdoms, they have to unite the faunus and the humans, and it would just play into all the themes they set up, and then they unite
Yeah.
like everyone against Salem, and they're like we're worth saving, and then Team Ruby bring together all four relics on their own, or they let Salem bring them together, and the gods come back, and Salem's like, now wipe everyone out, but then the gods are like, actually, we judge humanity as worth saving. And then they don't kill everyone, and then Salem's just left there like, what? Like, I orchestrated this whole thing to bring you back. I divided humanity. And then Ruby's like, you didn't divide humanity. We stopped you.
Like you only made us stronger. Something like
Exactly.
yeah,
Like you
which
tried and you failed, which I like, but after volume 8 where they just like, turned against like, Ironwood, I can't bring myself to see that as like I would be so mad if that happened because they should have realized that message in volume 8.
yeah.
Like it would be too late for them to realize it would it have any merit.
But it's also like a mix of that, and it's also like I like at that point I feel like you would have to redeem Salem to do
Right,
that.
like how
Then
would you get rid of her? She'd still be
yeah,
like
exactly.
presence.
It's like you could establish it where it's like okay, she's always gonna be like you can't get rid of evil. Like there's just evil's always going to exist, and if you want to like call Salem
Oh
like
my
a
god, that's the Rise
representation,
of the Guardians. Have you
yeah,
seen Rise of the
I have.
Guardians? Oh, you have to. Sorry to spoil it.
It's fine. It's just
It's
like
so good.
it just
Wait, now I'm picturing it.
because just like you realize that like you can't get rid of Salem, so Salem's just always going to be there. But then you end the story off of like every generation is going to be fighting
I
Salem.
have seen the theories of like the last scene of the show is like 100 years in the future and Ozpin is reincarnated and he like meets a new silver-eyed warrior. And I've
And
seen like it ends like that, where it's like kind of
yeah,
open-ended. It's like there's just this cycle, you can't break the
yeah,
cycle. But I don't know what themes they'd be going for. I feel like it all has to boil down to their theme of like
unity or
yeah, like unity, which like I after volume 8 I can't I like I would laugh at that.
yeah. No, I would too. Honestly, I would too because of just how they fumbled that hard. It's like
Right.
unless they did something really good in Volume 10 of like reestablishing that, which I don't think they're going to
The only
do.
way they can fix volume 8 is if they retcon it, which is not going to happen. So
Well,
I don't know.
the thing is, I would have said at one point that Rooster Teeth is beyond like retcon. Like they would not retcon anything that they have. But then I also saw the trailer for Red vs. Blue season 18, and now they are retconning around like 10 seasons worth of work. So
Oh my
I don't know
god,
what to think
that's
anymore.
hilarious.
Like, 'cause, like literally, like, I was telling you before with Red
Yeah,
vs. Blue, like
I haven't seen Red versus
I
Blue,
know, but like,
which
I told
you
you
need
like
to.
if you ever do, I always said stop at season 13, right? Because that's when I
Right.
said it stopped being as good. Which
Just completely like that's
everything now they've said literally everything that happens after that is just a simulation. That it's not actually real. It's just in an AI
yeah,
program.
literally imagine up and they're like, oh, that wasn't.
It's just again at this point, I would say that's not necessarily off the table. It's
Rooster
just
Teeth, I'm gonna send you my fan fiction, and you're going to retcon Volume 8, and you're gonna turn my fan fiction into Volume 8,
give me money.
and give me that money
Yeah,
because I saved you.
yeah.
So
You're welcome.
you're welcome.
That's like the scene of like if anyone here has ever seen the Deadpool just the ending scene of "You're welcome, Canada."
You're wait, Rooster Teeth is
Oh no,
no, they're
just
not
no,
in
no,
Canada.
they're not. No,
I thought they were. They're
just for a
not.
second, just be like, "You're welcome."
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't know how it's going to end. And like I don't think I'm gonna watch volume 10. I know you're like ride
Oh,
or
I
die,
mean,
like
absolutely, yeah,
you're sticking it through the end.
yeah.
I don't think I can unless you tell me it's really good. Like you're gonna be my
Which
resource.
I mean, in fairness, I'm also going to say every single volume is like, "Oh, you gotta see it." See, at least like the first couple of days after it comes out, I will be absolutely like, "Yeah, you gotta see it. You gotta see it."
Which I think that's so like you're so you have such a like that makes sense,
Yeah,
because like you really like we both love the show and like
yeah.
just like more Ruby content is always is it's a good thing. It's like oh there's more. It's a chance for them to like
To
do
fix it.
better and then like
Yeah,
some stuff are good and you're like you ride that high for a bit and then you like take a step back. You're like wait,
you
because
maybe
when I
like
first watched Volume 8 I didn't hate it, but
right.
then I like rewatched like I like was like digging in about it and I was like wait.
Hang on.
There's some loose ends.
Yep, yep,
Here.
yep. Which again, like I fully understand that. Just because that just like it, like you said, you step away from it. The high that you ride with the entire volume finally fades away, and you realize there's a lot of things that they could have done better. But at the same time, it's like I'm so deep into the show now, where it's just like I don't feel like I could ever.
And it means so much to you.
Yeah, it
Which
does. It's
yeah,
just like
which is
it.
like we said at the beginning is that, this show like, despite its flaws, it can just mean so much to people that it's like you're allowed to like it. Like we're not saying like, "Oh my God, look at everything bad about this show."
Yeah,
Like, no, you're allowed to like it.
yeah. No, it's at the end of the day, like with everything that we've said so far, like despite everything that we've called them out for so far, and we've called out a lot of things here so
Yeah.
far. I would like to say that we've also said that like it is still worth it to go through some of the stuff. Like it, even I'd say with maybe even with Miraculous, which I can't speak to because I haven't actually seen it yet. But like I feel like if you can acknowledge a lot of the things you don't like about something, it makes you realize just how much you love about the show also so much more.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that, and maybe, I don't know if volume 10 is gonna be the last volume or it hasn't even been greenlit yet.
It has like I mean they did say it's in like the writing is in production, just like they haven't greenlit it yet, is what they've
Okay.
said. But then again, like what that actually means, I have no idea.
I do hope they would get like, at least two more volumes so they can wrap up the story. But
Or just wrap it up in general.
right, but I do hope it gets a good ending because it definitely deserves that. I don't
It
want it to
does,
end on
yeah.
like a bad note. I want them to like try like a last hurrah and like a last ditch effort to like, salvage the miscellaneous pieces they have and like
Yeah. But then again, it's like we are saying, like, we don't really know what they're gonna do to do it, and it's
I don't know. I don't see any way how I can be satisfied.
like so for me, it's just like I think like if they do go about some route of like Salem does end up succeeding, like you're saying, either like they let the gods decide, but then establish Salem as just like the root of all evil and she'll never go away, or in some way the gods do like take her out after she summons them all. And then what I can see happening is like if they go through that route, then like Cinder steps up to the plate and then like not necessarily like, takes over the Salem Empire, but like just like continues evil from there.
But then they can like just I don't know why they wouldn't be able to kill her because she's not
They kill her
immortal.
next is the thing because that's the big
You're next,
climactic
Cinder.
because just like that's the big like I don't want to think of Salem as like the final bad because in fact it's like for like despite how much she's influenced the plot and that kind of thing,
She wasn't there from the beginning.
that and it's also just like the fact that she's immortal feels like just she was never meant to be defeated in that big because I feel like series like this they have to have that big final battle at the end and it has to end with or not necessarily it has to end with the good guys winning in the end, but like it has to have that big climactic end where something happens, something big shifts.
Right. And like you said, like they can't kill Salem unless they like use the relic of create not creation, relic of destruction and are like destroy her
Yeah,
immortality and
which
it's so
it
cheap.
was. It just, oh my
Like I
god,
feel like
it's
they just dug themselves into a hole and I don't know if they have an ending planned right now, but maybe they do.
I mean, they've implied that there is like something of an ending in mind. Like they've said multiple times in multiple products that they know the direction they want to go in. And from what we've discussed so far, it doesn't feel like they actually really do. But it's implied that they do have some sense of they know where they want the story to go. And it's like I'm not saying that like they should call out right now what they're planning at the end to be because like
Like reveal
yeah,
your ending, spoil it for everybody.
obviously, because it's just like cause I again with the product we've worked on in the past, it's like there's definitely a difference between the intention writers have for what they want to get across versus what actually ends up
You
being
know what?
produced.
There was literally a quote in Volume 7 where with the councilman that Ironwood shot in Volume 8,
Slate, yeah,
Slate, he was like, what people intend and what they do aren't always the same. And
yeah,
that's a good quote.
that is, and I mean like especially just in the field of writing, and like we were saying before, not every like all-star character was intended to be that all-star character.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I know there's definitely a degree of like the fans hyping up a character that maybe, doesn't like it's just they're just like, they're an okay character, but the fans are like, this is the best character ever made. Like there's a degree of the fandom having an influence on like what they want to see versus what happens, like there's definitely that aspect to it,
Right.
but like and like it's not saying that the writers have to listen to what the fans say.
No, not at all. Like they don't sacrifice that integrity for like you have the story you
Yeah.
want to tell, and it's like I. There's a part where it's like I could see like a producer being like, well, you see the money is coming from this character you really don't care about, so could you step it up with this, please? And it's like
Right.
I wish we were in this world where it's like if a writer says I never intended for this character to be all that big of a deal, and they don't want that character to still be a big of a deal, that they should be able to stick by that decision, or
I
like
completely agree with that.
yeah, just like any decision a writer makes, I feel like if within reason, they should be able to maintain that integrity because it's
Right.
their story you
Exactly,
spawn
but
and
there's definitely a fine line between, listening to like demands of fans versus like just like not listening to criticism at all. Because I feel
right.
like the show, they don't really listen to criticism and they don't like, they're not like, how do we improve our craft? They're not seeking to make it better. They're not seeking to make it the best they can be. They're just like, this is what we have and you're gonna, accept it. And, fans do, right? Fans will like whatever they put out, which is fine. And that's like, that's comforting, but
I was
like
like,
I
we're about
get
to get filleted alive by people saying like, "Oh no, here's evidence of the other thing," and it's just like we're just like it. We
this
are
is this
just
is this is what we think.
yeah, this is just our opinion on this, but
Yeah.
just I still feel like we're just gonna get absolutely filleted alive by people on the internet.
And you know what? That's like, that's what's so sad about the fandom is I've seen from both sides. I've seen people who are like diehard fans of the show. Anytime someone says even like a little thing like, "Oh, I wish like, Blake and Yang talked about this." The fans are like, "How dare you be homophobic?" But then
Yeah,
on the other side, I see like if someone's like, like me, I'm like, oh, I like Ironwood. I wish he wasn't written that way. They're like, you're a bootlicker. You're sexist. And I'm like, I'm a girl. Like, I'm not. Like there's both sides of like there's both extremes
yeah, there are.
of the fandom.
Yeah,
There's like the rude community. Do you know about them? They're like
yeah,
we're WDE. They're like we're the
yeah,
creeps. And then there's the fandom, which is FNDM, which I think it's funny. They kind of built their own like
teams. Yeah.
teams, but it's just like it's a constant war, and there can be no middle ground. Which is why I'm glad we did this because I wouldn't consider myself rude like
Right.
RWD.
Or and I would consider myself part of
D.
it's like it's with every fandom, honestly. There's so much like it. It's why I'm always so nervous about making these videos about anything even remotely a fan of. It's why I have and still don't really want to make a video on why I love High School DxD as much as I
No,
do
I think you
because
should.
yeah, and I want to eventually. I want to be
Yeah.
able to make a video about that eventually, but I also don't because I'm so worried about like what people are going to say like on the fandom
I
side.
just feel like if people listen to our video and they get this far and they comment something like, both of you are just haters. Like, you didn't
Yeah,
listen to our video.
yeah, no, like you
And
just
that's
listened to
like,
the first 5 minutes of it, and
right.
which I don't blame you, but
But
also
the first 5 minutes of our video were nothing but positive.
yeah.
So like what?
I'm just, like on one hand, like if you've listened all the way to this point, like thank you so much for listening to
Yeah,
all of
thank
this.
you.
But also, like if you didn't, I don't entirely blame you. But also, you're missing the entire point of what we're
As
talking
we're
about.
talking to the people who didn't
Exactly.
get this
Yeah.
far, we're like,
Yeah.
oh, didn't you get this
Yeah.
far?
You
And they're
know.
never gonna hear this.
Listen, that's just the way these YouTube thing rolls. I've been around here on YouTube long
Yeah.
enough to say that.
No, but I just like thank you for agreeing to do this video because I really hope no one is gonna comment anything nasty because I think we're just really I think what we're saying is what a lot of fans feel and I think that like we said like with the show there's it's like they make it a morally gray problem but then everyone's like it's a black and white issue when it's not and I think that's the same with being a fan versus being a critic is
Right.
it's not black and white,
No, not
they're
at
not
all.
two completely different things. There's overlap, and that's what we wanted to show with this video.
Right, and like I'm so glad that you suggested that we did this video for it because I wanted to be able to because I feel very strongly about that. And it's like again, I'm so nervous about doing that because I'm always so like I don't want to dip my toe into anything having to do with any fandom I'm a part of because I'm so worried about that part of the community.
Right.
It scares me to see that part of the
No, and
community.
that's so fair, but it's like it's just so unfortunate you have to be afraid to voice what you like think in a respectful way because I feel like we're being really respectful,
I'd
like we might
like
have
to
like,
think so.
said some like, called out some and like been a little, harsh sometimes, but I think it's, warranted. I think it's valid and I think just, we're expressing this product that like, we wouldn't be making this video if we didn't care about the product.
Right.
We wouldn't have spent 3 hours talking about Ruby if we didn't like Ruby.
At all. No, no, no. It's like again, if you love something, you acknowledge it for its flaws, and it's also like we've acknowledged throughout all of this that we don't really know how we would have done it better either.
Yeah,
But
like
we
we're not
also,
perfect. We're
yeah,
still
no,
learning.
not at all, not at all. But we're still like we still like feel these things about what we've seen, and we do think that our voices still do deserve to be heard. Regardless of whether the fact like you want to say like we're haters or we're like diehard fans of it or whatever the
Like,
case
you know
may
what?
be.
I don't care what
Yeah,
people think.
I mean,
Like I mean that's easier said than
yeah,
done.
I know.
But in this instance, I genuinely don't care.
I
Like
mean,
if they want to come and be like, "You're a hater," I'll be like, "You didn't listen.
real.
Open your ears." Like
Again, because just we've expressed both love and hate for the show over the course of the entire. Or not even hate. We just expressed
yeah,
criticism for
exactly.
it.
It's not hate. We're not
Just
hating on
it's
it. We're
criticism that we
right.
provided.
And I think everything we said is just like it has like stance, it has like that we gave our evidence. We
Yeah, we have.
exactly. And again, there's just so much we love and there's so much I love about this show and it pains me to see like, some stuff happen to it that I don't agree with, but at the end of the day, like it's it's a show that means so much to so many people and it deserves to be talked about.
Right. There is. And I look forward to talking so much more about the show in the future. I'm interested to see where they end up taking things. Again, I'm down with this ship no matter where it ends up taking us. It just like I need to see an end for them. I want to see where it's gonna go. It might
They
be
deserve that.
they do, and it's like I feel like even if it's like the worst ending I think anyone's ever seen written in like the history of everything, which I'm sure it probably won't be, but at the same time, it's like once we get to that point of the end, that's when I can finally lay everything to rest. Love or hate the show,
Mhm.
otherwise, by the end, I have to see where this
And you know
ends.
what? I'm always gonna come back to it, in some way. Like I still draw fan art for it. I'm literally writing a fan fiction for it right now. I'll probably rewatch Volume 7 this month.
Which again, I don't like. Again, I want to rewatch Ruby so badly, and it's just if I could ever find the time to, or ever find like a slot in anything to do
Hmm.
it, then I absolutely, absolutely will because I love the show so much. It's just I don't have the time, and
Yeah.
I was saying like just I appreciate that. Like I say, I don't have the time yet. I am sitting here with my friend who recorded this video.
We
It's
could have
okay.
been watching Ruby this whole
We could
time.
have.
What are we doing?
That's the takeaway from this video. But anyway, honestly, with that being said, though, I do think we probably should wrap things up here. This was
Hmm.
an amazing, amazing discussion, Alia. Thank you so, so much for
Thank
coming to
you.
join me for
Thank
this.
you. Thank you for having me. I would love to be back. I'm always happy to help you out and talk. Like this is, I'm really glad that I found someone I can like actually talk to this stuff about,
Same.
in person because it's so easy to hide behind a computer screen and like hit on the cap locks. Just like go at it. But I think when we actually sit down and like, have a
Right.
civil
Conversation.
conversation as friends, like, like Ruby and Ironwood, we have the same goal
Yep, we have the same direction we're going in. We just have very different ways we're going about getting there. And
Exactly.
neither one of us are right or wrong about it. It's just
And I'm not
our
gonna
way
be
of
like
doing it.
you're incorrect.
And neither am I. It's just like
Right?
like we each have different views. I think everyone has a different view on it. And it's like that's the main thing I wanted to get across with is it just that like it is possible to have these discussions, and I want to see these discussions happen more, particularly in the Ruby community more.
$100%.
And it's like it's Alia 100% that like gave me that confidence in it. Like
Oh,
when
thank
we met, just
you.
like honestly, it's just like I didn't want to talk about Ruby with anyone because I was always so worried about what people were going to say. Also, because most of the friends I've told Ruby about are just like the animation sucks and they stopped there. So it's
So
just
shallow.
I am aware. I love you guys to pieces. You know it, but also just like I
Shout
wish.
out to the friends
Yeah,
who
absolutely.
stopped.
So it's just like I wish that they would give the show the shot, but I also fully understand why they don't. So it's just been like I've been
It's
on
a
my
rabbit hole.
it
It
is
definitely is.
absolutely, absolutely, and it's just like with every show I've ever been a fan of, like it's so hard to find people to talk to where you can be civil about it, where you can have different opinions, but still walk away from it not like hating the other person that you just talked to for,
Exactly.
which just
I don't hate you.
you know I don't either. No, I don't either. And it's
We
like,
agreed on literally 90% what we
yeah,
said.
yeah, yeah. Because just like we both like understand the other point. It's like even if like we don't entirely agree like the exact direction, it's like yeah, that does make sense. I don't necessarily agree with it, but there's logic behind it. We accept that there's a logic behind
Right. Exactly.
it, which
You
is
know.
again it's how I feel discussions like this should go, and I'm so glad that I got to have this here with you
Me
for this.
too.
So
This was so fun. Thank you so
yes,
much. I'm always down to talk more. We'll be having more talks behind the scenes,
oh no,
definitely.
absolutely,
But I'm
absolutely, we
glad
will.
we could record this and get it out there. I'm really excited
Yeah,
to
no,
see what'll happen.
I'm very much excited to see how people are going to respond to this. I am ready for absolutely everything you guys have to say for this. And I mean, if nothing else, please just give this video all the praise in the world just for this lovely human being here that's
Oh,
joined me
thank
for this
you.
video. It's
And
just like
you too. This is your channel, and it's a wonderful passion project, and I'm just so honored to be a part of it. And thank you so much for having me. And
it's great having you on here,
thank
Alia. It's like
you.
it as much as this video has, this channel itself has just been a big passion project. It's like it's my biggest dream has always been to have my friends be a part of it a lot more than I have, and it's like it's the whole thing. Like I am so happy that I finally have someone who's come back now to it because of that. It's just like that's what this channel is all for. It's like it's a portfolio of things that I can do, a portfolio of things that I'm showing off that I'm doing for my major and that kind of thing, and for the things that I love, but it's also to be able to do things with my friends and be able to share this medium with my friends that I love so so much. And
Thank
I'm so
you.
happy that I get to share that with you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so
Yes, thank you everyone for listening.
yeah, for 2 hours
Let
for
us
this video.
know in the comments if you agree or disagree with what we said.
Yeah, and of course, like say, and I feel like maybe in the future, like if there are any like particular comments on this, like I might like do a video calling out, like not calling out, but like
Like showing like talking about what they said or
exactly, like just like
yeah.
maybe like talking about like points. Like if you feel like there's something that we could have talked about about Ruby over the vast span of everything that we could go into, if you feel we should have talked about the Ruby Justice League crossovers that came out
I
recently,
don't think anyone's gonna comment.
so either. But you never know. It's just like if there are people out there who do want to hear that, then
I'd totally be down to come back and talk more. And I am excited to hear what people, have to say about either like, what we said or if they have like a totally different point they want to bring up. But like again, like the comment section here is a safe space and we will not tolerate any hate towards each other because like we did here, we want to create a dialogue where you can express your opinion, without being afraid of like being, bashed for it because we want to like offer that chance for people like as we're doing here.
of course, like there won't be everyone who agrees, and we acknowledge that. But it's like we don't want anyone to be shot down for being original or for being or having a thought or idea that's theirs.
Yeah, whether you're a fan, whether you're a critic, just don't be like
Just don't be a
mean.
jerk about it.
That.
Yep, we'll wrap it up here again. Round of applause here again for Alia. Thank you guys
Thank
again so
you.
much
Thank you,
for. Yeah,
Mustafa.
thank
Thank you
you,
so
thank
much. This
you.
is an honor, and I'm
Yeah,
having
this is
so
an
much
honor
fun.
right back around.
Oh,
Thank you
thank
so, so
you.
much for being here.
Hugs.
Saying thank you so much for all of this, Alia, and thank you
Yeah.
guys so much for listening to this up until now. This has been such a treat to get to do for you guys as long as I have, and I'm hoping to continue doing this for who even knows how long. So I Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, I'm Mustafa, once again joined by the lovely Alia,
Oh,
and
thank you.
hopefully we'll be joined by again at some point in the future.
Absolutely.
But
Uh,
until then,
Opposite of salutations.
yeah,
I don't know what that would be.
neither do I.
Sa-
Um, but then also, again, shout outs to a lot of the lovely, lovely people who helped make a lot of this channel happen. To Blake, to Chris, to Nick, to Knight, who I don't know anyone here who still knows Knight, who knows my old channel.
And also shout out to the people who actually worked really hard to make RWBY happen because we know a lot of work does go into it. So shout out to the voice actors, the animators and everyone behind the scenes who are just trying their best to get their product out there. We really do appreciate that hard work.
We do for like everything we've said so far, like
Yeah.
everything good, bad, or otherwise. We do acknowledge that there is work behind it, and regardless of everything we've said, we do appreciate that immensely.
Amazing.
Yes, and
All
that being
right.
said, before I ramble any further,
Salutations.
yeah, take care, everyone. See here, if you would.
Hello. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
that
Okay.
definitely that
Here.
that 100% caught on to
You
it.
can
Yes.
see how it can hear my voice from here. Okay, I think that's good. Now we
Uh,
can like just lean in.
just one more test to see.
Ah,
Stay alive.
uh, oh.
Stay alive.
Staying alive.
There. There.
Hello.
Ooh, that definitely caught it. All right. Yeah. There we go.
Yeah,
Oh, see,
that's it.
yeah, that's definitely catching. That's
That's the
100%.
one.